All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Curry County Budget Committee meeting. I'll call the meeting to order, and please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up on the agenda is amendment and approval of the agenda. We have only really one item on here, other than public comments, which is at the end of the meeting today. So is there a motion on the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to discussion action items. So, first of all, everyone, Budget Committee, let me start by apologizing to all of you. I know when we left last time, we thought we were done. So I apologize to have to reconvene this committee. I know that you guys are business owners, your time is valuable, and this is also a very passionate and difficult conversation that we're having. So again, I apologize. So here's the order of information that I'd like to present today. First, I will explain a sequence of events and the information we have learned that will explain why I reconvened this budget committee. Then I will have Keena explain the financial facts that she has discovered and how the information we now know changes the budget. After that, I will present to you a plan, an option that will save 4 deputies' jobs, maintain 1 detective position, and increase overall efficiency with the sheriff's office. So I'm going to start by telling you why I reconvened this committee. So as you remember, on Friday, May 31st, we voted to recommend a budget to the Board of Commissioners. The recommended budget was sent to the sheriff, and Keena requested a roster of personnel. On Saturday, June 1st, at 3:31 p.m., we received an email from Sheriff Ward and Captain McDonald. The email read, and I'm quoting, "Attached spreadsheet that we have prepared, which we were directed to make. We cut 1 FTE. We increased the transfer from special projects to $130,000 by reducing the materials and services and the contingency fund. We also increased the anticipated revenue in the concealed handgun license, civil charges, and timber service charges. Each was increased by a small amount that we are confident that we will be collecting." So I want to remind everybody about the fund we're talking about. So this is the Sheriff Special Project Fund that we're referencing here. This is the fund that, if you remember, was represented to us to be one-time money consisting of donations. And once this money is spent, it's gone. And that's what we were told. So when I was reading this email and immediately following, I knew this would be a problem. And, well, I knew we couldn't accept these changes. We couldn't accept these changes because, well, it wouldn't be legal. The budget that was approved to be taken to the Board of Commissioners, the adjustments should have been done when we started the process, along with any other revenue adjustments. So once it was approved by this committee and then it goes to the Board of Commissioners, those types of changes we can't do. So this change also, it didn't make sense to me, and I was really struggling to try to figure it out. So I spoke to Keena, and I requested that she make a detailed examination of that fund. And I'm talking about the Sheriff Special Project Fund. So late Saturday night and into the morning of Sunday, June 2nd, I learned that the Special Project Fund was not one-time money. It was not one-time money that was originally represented. This fund did have some one-time money in it, in the form of donations, etc. However, it was largely made up from reoccurring revenue from marijuana tax money. So, after receiving this information, I was questioning what to do next, and I decided to reach out to Budget Committee member Dan Bratton. And during the evening on Sunday, June 2nd, I spoke to Dan. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Dan's business knowledge and wanted to run this situation by him. I made Dan aware of the new information, and after conferring with Dan, it was really clear to me that I needed to reconvene this budget committee. And then on Monday, June 3rd, I directed staff to reconvene the committee and start the process of scheduling. And then on Tuesday, June 4th, we received an email from the sheriff and the captain. This email contained a personnel roster as we had requested, which included the proposed cuts. So after reviewing the sheriff's proposed personnel roster, in addition to what I knew that Keena had found, this essentially caused me to really look at this entire situation from a very different perspective. And I started working on creating a plan that I could present to you today. So I'm going to kind of pause here, and I'm going to ask Keena to explain to you in detail what she learned in the examination of this fund. And I would ask that you keep your questions and comments to a minimum, so that when she's done, I can come back into presenting this plan to you. And then once I do that, we can really open this up for some pretty in-depth discussion. So, Keena?
I don't have a microphone, but I can talk loud.
Yeah, we want to get a microphone for Keena. Maybe just hand that over to her. Thank you, Nick.
Okay. So I went back, and it looks like this fund started in 2017-18 fiscal year. In the beginning, it was made up of money that were paid to the county sheriff's department for special project type work that the county sheriff's office was working on, and some of the expenditures were then associated with that special project. 18-19 year, there was another special project that took place. There was also a donation that came in that said it was restricted for sonar use, and also a memorial donation that was put into place, and some expenditures for sheriff's office equipment. In the 19-20 year is when we first started to see marijuana tax revenue coming in a total of $178,866.20 into this fund. In addition, there was $46,000 of rollover funds due to the special projects that had taken place. There was also canine donations and a few other kind of one-off donations that came in that weren't necessarily restricted. In 2021 year, again, there was about $165,000 of rollover funds, largely made up of the marijuana tax that came into that fund. In addition, there was a $39,000 Arthur R. Dubs Foundation donation, which is a canine use donation. Also some donations, smaller donations that specifically called out criminal and civil donations. Again, $223,000, $28 of marijuana tax hit that fund during that year. With the expenditures being canine-related expenditures, there were Sheriff's Department-related expenditures, ammo, taser, holsters, batteries, timekeeping, rail mount lights, that type of stuff, and then several different canine supplies, vet bills, trainings and stuff for the canines. 21-22, there was $124,278 of marijuana tax money that hit that. A rollover balance, again, largely made up of marijuana tax funds of $338,715. There were a few other canine donations that came in, as well as $7,200 of miscellaneous funds. Then several expenditures for canines training, specifically for the handlers of the training. There were some reserve radios, chargers, headsets, rifles, ammos, UPS for dispatch. I don't know what that acronym stands for. Canine equipment, vet bills, feed, board, supplies. And then we started to see a small liability insurance payment specifically for the canines that were coming out of that fund. 22-23, a rollover balance of $354,761, again largely made up of marijuana tax dollars. We did have $26,000 of canine donations, $440 of criminal civil donations, $143,585 marijuana tax that year, and then a large allocated interest of $19,472 that hit that fund. Then expenditures, canine expenditures for training. There were materials and services of laptops, hard drives, Microsoft 365, Windows 10, structural analysis on a Grizzly Tower. There was some non-capital equipment expenditures for a command trailer, ammo, reserve portables, reserve vest and carriers, and then canine equipment, which looks like canine vests, boarding, decals, equipment, supplies, and the small liability insurance. That brings us to the current year of FY 23-24. Get up there, sorry. A rollover balance of $483,178, largely made up of the marijuana tax. There was $49,000, almost $50,000 that came in from the flat fire, and some organ emergency management monies. There was canine donation of $464, another donation that came in for criminal and civil for $2,500, and then $113,340 of marijuana tax dollars, and $5,178.88 of allocated interest for that fund. Expenditures were a truck box, canopy, reserve tasers, holsters, 12-gauge beanbags, radio equipment, and miscellaneous, along with canine boarding, graphics, meds, and the small canine insurance. So with the restricted funds, that leaves us rolling into the FY25 year with canine reserves of $39,084. Those are donations. If donations come in and they're allocated for a specific purpose, they need to be reserved for specific purposes. So $39,084 for canine. We still have the $2,000 donation for sonar because I can't see where there's an expenditure that went out for that. $20,500 in miscellaneous donations. We have that allocated interest from 2018 to current, which is $27,237. and then a special projects reserve for $49,731 for a total about $99,468. That leaves $445,907 of unused marijuana tax dollars that were represented and recorded into this particular fund as miscellaneous revenue, which is inaccurate recording of tax dollars that are coming into the county should be recorded in the general fund as tax dollars so we can track for transparency of these are tax dollars being paid into the county. There was an order that we were able to locate in 2019 that said that the county can use or the sheriff's office can use marijuana tax dollars to for operations purposes, but that's not necessarily how it was recorded. An operation should be before any other backfill amount, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Any questions?
so obviously this changes quite a bit from what we agreed upon. And what we voted in and what we agreed upon is not going to work. So I put together this plan. Now I'm going to present this plan today, and I have to say I don't want to present this plan. Not at all. And when some of you hear this plan, as I know a lot of people are watching this, you're going to be upset with me. You're going to be mad at me. Some of you I'll probably lose some friends over this. Others may appreciate it. The fact is, there's no way to make everyone happy. I know that. The reality here is the people turned down this proposed levy that we presented. So we have to make cuts. And if we don't make those cuts now, no one will have a job. In the future, this county will be bankrupt, and we won't have public safety at all. So we have to cut. So this plan that I put together, it's predicated on prioritizing public safety while still living within our means. This plan requires everyone involved have a willingness to change the way we're doing things. This plan will take what we have and it will make it more efficient for the people. But we have to live within our means and work with what we have. This plan starts with reorganizing the structure of the sheriff's office. Now, when I say that, here's what I mean. The sheriff's proposed personnel roster under patrol, and I'm just talking about patrol right now, there are 6 supervisors if you include the sheriff, but only 5 road deputies. And I cannot support having more supervisors than patrol deputies. Patrol is and should be the backbone of every department. And throughout my career, I have always advocated strongly against a span of control that was too heavy with supervisors. The sheriff's proposal also cut both detective positions. And detectives play a vital role in every agency, especially when you're looking at major staffing cuts to patrol. Staffing cuts in patrol mean most of the reports we take will be after the fact. That creates a greater need for a detective because there will be more follow-up and more after-the-fact type investigations. So, where do we start? Well, this proposal eliminates several supervisor positions, starting with the jail. If we eliminate the lieutenant position and we bring back the jail corporal position, that will mean there will be 1 sergeant, 1 corporal to oversee the jail. And I want to remind this committee that the recommendation, based on the funding we had, was to cut the jail population to 20 beds. We would also have to cut the supervisor positions in dispatch and then move dispatch under the jail command. All of these things have been done here in the past. This is certainly not what I want to do, but I believe it is the right thing to do. In patrol, we would have to eliminate a captain's position, lieutenant position, and 1 sergeant position. This would leave the sheriff and 2 sergeants to supervise patrol. This would mean bumping would take place and the union would be involved. Now look, I don't even like talking about cuts like this. I consider many of the people being cut to be friends. But this will save jobs. It will save our deputies' jobs. We, the Board of Commissioners, have already agreed, we did this in the beginning, we're going to cut $20,000 off our salary. And I am willing to cut more if it saves jobs. The next part of my plan, it involves the use of opioid money. We currently have about $400,000 and will be receiving more money in the near future. This money is currently available. This money must be used within certain parameters. These parameters are spelled out under Exhibit E in the opioid settlement. This is Exhibit E. Exhibit E details specific parameters that money can be used for. I propose this money be used to create 2 positions that will fall within the restricted use of these funds. These will save 2 deputies' jobs. These positions are not patrol positions. They are specialized positions. These positions will also impact the opioid epidemic we have in our community. You've heard us talk a lot about that. The first position is a school resource officer position. This is a sworn deputy position. This deputy will focus on education and prevention of opioid use in our schools. Part of the deputy's job description will be provide training for schools, community support groups, and families, provide education to school-based and youth-focused programs that discourage or prevent misuse of opioids, provide evidence-based prevention programs in schools, create and support recovery in high schools, provide training that will focus on youth and young adults who are recovering from misusing opioids, create and support school-based contacts that parents can engage in, and develop an opioid prevention program. That job description that I just gave came right out of Exhibit E in the use of opioid money. This deputy will have a presence in our schools across the county and will be able to enforce our laws. The school resource officer will work hand in hand with our juvenile department and support the opioid programs that we discussed during the juvenile director's budget presentation. The second position is a community resource officer position. This will be a sworn deputy position. This deputy will focus on the opioid epidemic in our community with a special focus on opioid abuse within the homeless community. This community resource officer position will closely mirror the community resource officer that is currently being used in Brookings, and this program has had tremendous success. Part of the community resource officer position will be to participate in training and education of community members, developing officer intervention strategies, gathering and maintaining statistical information related to opioid abuse, provide public education relating to drug disposal, provide public information related to emergency responses to overdoses, enforce state law and county ordinance. This position will work closely with our nonprofits that we have in our community, with our healthcare providers. And this position will go into situations like what we're having at Rainbow Rock, and go into those situations with a different approach and make every attempt we can to impact that problem. Now, finally, the last piece of this plan is to focus on effectiveness. And I'm going to take you guys back to when we had a discussion about the statistical information that we learned. So I am proposing that we move animal control back under the direction of the sheriff. This will be a non-sworn position. This position will serve two roles. One will be animal control. The other will be serving civil subpoenas. We now know statistically that probably 30% or more of our deputies' time, patrol time, it's being spent serving civil subpoenas. We also know from doing animal control out of our office what the call volume is. And I'm confident that the animal control position will be able to do both duties. This will free up our deputies' time. It will allow deputies to focus on patrol-related activities. It will also create more time for deputies to complete reports in a timely manner. I've worked with Keena, and this will fit within the budget, the amount of money that we have. It's close. We don't have that contingency fund that we had before. Maybe we do. But I'll let Keena tell you where this plan falls within the numbers that we have. And then I want to open this up for discussion with everyone. Keena?
Okay, what you've been provided in your agenda, first of all, looks like the non-departmental fund. We're accounting for the marijuana tax to be received into the general fund, and then it can be allocated out for transparency so we can see it coming in and then going out to specific funds. And then also increasing the ending fund balance for the reserve marijuana that is in special projects, moving that back to the general fund to be then allocated out so we can track that money. This is making adjustments to the special projects, adding the opioid reserve fund, making an adjustment to salary fringe numbers within civil, criminal, and patrol based on Brad's staffing plan. Reducing the staff charges in the communications or dispatch, which frees up some money for us to then allocate that out back to criminal, civil, and patrol for those deputies that he's talking about adding. Having those two deputies, the community resource and school resource coming out of our opioid monies. And then on the jail, we have a couple different things on the jail one. So first of all, the transfer for the current fiscal year transfer from parole and probation to the jail was for $157,500. We have a biennial contract with the state of Oregon for $300,000 per biennium. If we have transferred the $157,500, that only leaves us $142,500 for this current year. So the projected transfer again was $157,500, which would make us $15,000 over on what our state contract says. So I had to reduce that to $142,500. Making the adjustments then to the salary fringe based on Commissioner Alcorn's model would increase the general fund requirements to the jail, but again, that is coming out of the monies from the marijuana money that was sitting there. So that really just divided it up between CrimCiv and the jail, which actually left us about $2,000.
Thank you, Kina.
Yes, so those were the funds. It was all with the exception of the general fund and the marijuana tax coming into that fund and then being allocated out of that fund. And then opioid, special projects, jail, communications, and that transfer amount in parole and probation. Those were the only funds that were attached.
To clarify, Keena, were the numbers that you received from the sheriff's budget, were those actually correct, or did you have to correct some of the?
I did have to
Right.
correct some of those based on the payroll or the FTE allocations that were provided. I took the staff that are in those positions, and it didn't come out. It came out more than what I was anticipating, so I had to adjust those numbers in order to make it balance.
Okay.
The opioid money, we will be getting more opioid money coming in. And to initiate those two positions that I talked about that will save those deputies' jobs, there will be some training involved in that. They're going to need to learn some things, and they're going to have to gather some information that they would incorporate into those positions. But there is enough money in there and enough money coming in there in the future to more than accommodate that. The key is to keep those positions specific within the parameters of the restricted use of those funds.
And just to elaborate a little bit on that, the opioid money is a settlement that was made through 2038. So it's a long, it's not like it's a couple years worth of money. It's a long-standing allocation of those monies.
This is a plan, it's an option, and I want to discuss that option. I know the sheriff is here, captain is here. Of course, I want to hear their thoughts about this. Again, my intent is to provide the highest level of public safety we can provide and keep as many of our deputies as we can keep. Comments? Anyone like to start?
I have a couple questions. So the marijuana money, it's that's annual tax revenue. Okay, and so just the numbers you were giving at I hope I kept up, but it looks like it's an average of about 156,000 a year. So
Ebbs and flows.
if we were going to budget on a sustainable model, it'd be kind of in that range, 150-ish. Okay. You answered the opioid one about being sustainable to 2038. Okay. The only other, well, there's a few things. So, the one thing I would want to also possibly discuss is this wasn't extremely clear to us on Thursday when we were going through the budget, but the jail. I did the math, and so originally it was kind of floated around. It was like a $400,000 reduction. It was going to cause us to go to 20 beds instead of 35. But when I look at what was actually agreed upon, it's only a difference of 144,946, so 145,000. And I feel like that's something that we should look at because that's a big ROI on
Opening
services.
those beds up, yeah.
Right? If we're only $150,000 away from being able to go from 20 to 35 beds, I think, so looking at your plan, I'm just trying to, think about like what that would look like. And then, so I'll give my little piece because I'm I went a different route. So when I received kind of that position control roster, you know, I wanted to see what it looked like. And I think one of the things that the budget committee had asked, Nick, you asked, was what did it look like, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, et cetera. So I did a 15-year, but I did it in 5-year increments because it was a lot of research, which, I mean, should be done. So I want to hand this around just for perspective on staffing position control rosters. And what's interesting, well, I'm gonna hand this around. Let me hand it this way and then that way. So they're just quick snapshot statistics of staffing, and this is limited to the sheriff's department because that's what we were discussing. But so it has a 2008 look, a 2013 look, 2018, our current, and then the one that was proposed in our recent in the recent information, and then the subsequent services that were provided during those time frames, because there were different some services changed over time, you know. So it's, for me, it was a good look because in essence, what is being proposed is not it's not a situation that hasn't ever been looked at.
It's not the worst and it's not the best. So,
Well, you know, currently, I think with the proposed one from the sheriff, it was at 39 total staff. You know, but if you look back in 2008, we had 40, in 2013, we had 36. And so it shows this, what different staff did what and what their roles were and what services were provided by the sheriff's department at that time in comparison. So just to get an idea that these aren't uncharted territories. And so, you know, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel entirely, but just kind of look at a brief snapshot of what it's looked like in the past, at least in the recent past. So, you know, I hope it adds value for some informed decision-making today. The one thing that I had a question about, Brad, was, or Chair Alcorn, sorry, was, so in your finalized, what helps me, in your finalized plan, did it include, so the sheriff's plan included 39 total staff, 11 supervisors, and 28 staff. So in yours, how many, because I saw 2 additional positions, SRO, CRO.
Right?
But how many additional deputies?
2.
So 2 additional deputies,
4 total.
4 total with the removal of 3, so net 1,
Correct.
so net 3. So 30,
Correct.
so going from 39 to 43.
Correct.
Okay. So that's I needed, that's what I didn't quite have a grip on. So adding, going from 39 to 42. No, 4. 4 positions,
Yes.
net 4 positions.
Yes.
43.
43, okay. Net 4 positions. Okay. Which would add a detective, a deputy.
Would maintain a detective.
Well, sorry, no, it would be 44 because I forgot the animal control was in there. So animal control,
That's non-sworn though.
but it's still a position, same as it.
Right.
It, you know, there was administrative assistant was one of the positions
Sure.
listed in here, so it would just go under, I guess, the civil portion. So net 5.
With the non-sworn, yeah, with that additional non-sworn.
So
correct.
44, which I believe the only non-sworns right now would be the admin assistant. But DJ sworn? Yeah, so it'd just be that position. So
Yeah.
43 sworn, 1 non.
Civil deputy's not sworn, but she's
Oh, I thought Joan was. Okay.
sworn in corrections, but not,
Hey, Dan, can you give the sheriff the mic?
So, okay, so, but 44 total in that area. So actually net 5. You're proposing to add 5 positions
In total,
in total.
yes,
Okay, with the removal of 3.
yes.
Okay. Okay. The other thing is with, so what on the marijuana dollars and the opioid dollars? You mentioned there was a lot of there's restricted use for.
Correct.
Is there restricted use for marijuana?
No, I actually called the Department of Revenue, and in 2017, the Oregon Department of Revenue lifted all restrictions of marijuana tax dollars to be used for any purpose see fit.
Okay, but there was, you said there was an order in 2019?
County order,
Yeah, a 2019 marijuana order for operations.
sheriff operations.
Okay, so the,
Yeah, I have it.
essentially,
Ted?
at that time, the commissioners basically ordered that the money would be directed into the sheriffs for sheriff operations.
I'll read it to you.
Okay.
The Board of Commissioners or its designee shall forward taxes to the county treasurer for deposit of the proceeds of the recreational marijuana retail tax into a fund for sheriff's office operations.
Okay,
And that's ordinance number 19-11.
okay. And that sustainable money, essentially?
Yep,
Right?
every
Okay.
year.
We just.
Don't
We
tax-
get it quarterly.
We don't know the amounts.
Right,
Yeah.
but that average I looked at, it looked like 156 over a 5-year span, is what I calculated, so. And do we know the average for the opioid money?
So opioid, I think we have our treasurer here, maybe not, who's in the hallway. We've received a total of $598,000 in opioid money, but that money is, 75% of it is, per order has been going to, the sheriff's department in an opioid reserve essentially, and then 25% of that goes to juvenile.
Okay.
So,
And
about a little over $400,000 is what we have. Treasurer, Bacino, can you tell me about how much we get in opioid money
annually?
Annually, I have to look, but
quarterly? Do you have a,
quarterly, it just depends on who's giving us money, if it's like Walmart or whatever it is, but, we got, it's,
Can you come over here?
yeah, I just don't have that information right now. I can go get it real quick.
that'd be great if you could get us the last
Yeah, I
couple
think that's
quarters.
important information.
Thanks, Nick.
I guess I'm assuming that the 75-25 was something decided in Lipsick?
Yeah, that was a Lipsick recommendation. And if you remember the 25, Wendy's Director of Operations, Juvenile Operations, is using it kind of in a similar manner with a program and.
Right, she has the school
Correct.
information deal, got it, okay. Okay, well, I need to process for a minute, so.
Yeah, no.
I'll stop asking questions.
You want to start next, Sheriff?
basically don't know where to start it, other than I heard about this marijuana money that's, that was, from, actually, Ted called me on last Monday, or last Wednesday, I'm sorry, and was very accusatory and downright basically angry
calling me, accusing me of terminating people and pink slips and all that. And I says, I don't know where you heard that. That hasn't been done. Don't know where that came from. And then said that the money that's in the sheriff's special projects doesn't belong to me. Says he's going to take it and he's going to put it back into the road fund reserve because we should have used that money last year in the budget instead of using road fund reserves. That money's been budgeted ever since we got that money with the last commissioners that put the money in our project for operations. I guess you're using that term, operations. We used it for a lot of safety equipment, tasers, whatsoever. But the main thing what we're doing was saving that money up to help pay for the repeater radios that are up on the towers. There's like 5 repeaters in each tower room, and it's going to cost over a couple $1 million to replace those. And they need to be replaced. They're beyond life, and they're not supported anymore. And they've been fixed with, day wireless, cost them a lot of money fixing those things here and there. So that was our biggest goal, was to save that money and put it towards the towers, the radios. And it just kind of took me back by surprise. He said that because we'd already given up most of that money back to criminal civil to help save some positions. And before I forget the plan that you just you got, it's like, that's my job of coming up with, the sheriff has organization over his office, that's an ORS. And I'm sorry, but I've talked to a lot of sheriffs that say the same thing. They have authorization over organization of their office. And you're telling me that you're gonna hire some people, then you're gonna put them under my control? Doesn't work that way.
So first I'll address the issue about people getting fired and us being notified about that. Essentially, Sheriff, I got messages from deputies' wives saying their husbands just got a pink slip and they're getting fired.
We got pink slips. No, we had a meeting on.
And I understand that, but because I got that message and I didn't know, I had asked Ted to call you to make sure that maybe there's some information you needed, or if that was actually happening, then it should be corrected or communicated.
I had a staff meeting last Wednesday because we got a little over 2 weeks to, if you're gonna make these cuts, lives are gonna change. They need to they gotta make some plans. And I've been getting a lot of questions, so I had a staff meeting in my office, and I told them, we don't know what's going on right now. We presented at least 4 different proposals. Each one was sent back and said, we gotta need more cuts, you gotta show us more cuts. And I said, that would be up to the commissioners and the budget committee to make those decisions. I said, only suggested they contact their union rep just in case something happens.
And sometimes in passionate times like that, messages can get miscommunication.
Well, then I get an email from Keena, basically chastising me for, he said Ted told her that I terminated some people and that I have to rescind those immediately. Well, I wrote back and said, I don't know where you heard that, but that's not true. And
We heard it from your employees, so we had to take action to make sure that you weren't. Yeah, well, certainly we did. We heard from their wives, that's where the messages came from. So we had to notify you because that puts, if that had happened, which was what the warning was, that would put the county at great risk regarding wrongful termination and all kinds of workplace harassment.
He was asking me, Ted, I told you.
I know, I notified you about the complaint. That's what I did.
Well, I
notified people.
think the intent, Sheriff, was to let you know that maybe your message, it was different, but the way that it was received, people had,
They got their information from watching these budget hearings.
no, that information came out of the meeting you had. And a deputy called his wife and said, this is what's going on. And then very upset. She reached out. But my point to that is, if that wasn't said, that was the message that they interpreted from
I
that.
could ask anybody that was in that
And
office.
I'm not accusing you of it. This is a passionate time right now for everyone. So things like that are going to happen.
So just to kind of steer back on,
I got a couple questions. How many budgets have you been through, Commissioner Herzog?
This is the fourth one.
Fourth one. And how many? have you
6.
been? 6?
Yeah.
Out of all those, you guys never said anything about this special reserve project monies that we were allowed to have. Yet the budget's been approved, it's in there black and white, where this money's at, what we've used out of it. We didn't hide nothing. And you always ask me, what do I need, what do I want? And I say, this is what I need in this budget process. And you guys find a way to fund it. Well, you use a little road fund reserves. So I'm not responsible, or neither of anybody in my office responsible for that money being allocated someplace else, other than we use it to help save some jobs, because the last time we used it was, you guys approved the budget cuts on last Friday. It was not last Friday, Friday before. And we were told we had to cut another $394,272, which we did. We went in over the weekend and we cut the cabinet, made all the cuts, called me, I came in, we reviewed it, and we submitted it. And that's what we thought we were done. And that was with using $500,000 of that money. And then when the cuts came, we put the rest of it in there, 137,000, something like that. We saved, I think, 10,000 for canine issues, for training, for medication, for boarding, or what have you. And then 137,000 in contingencies. So nobody's hiding nothing. So I'm not sure why we had all this big call in the budget committee. We got a big problem. Well, the problem ain't with us. I've built up this sheriff's office for the last 10 years to provide the best public safety that we can. And it's always been approved by the budget committee, what we've asked for, or sometimes we didn't get what we wanted. We got status quo. So it's always been approved by the budget committee and approved by the commissioners. So I'm not sure why now all of a sudden, you know, the blanket's thrown out there over us like we're criminals or something.
Nobody said you're a criminal, Sheriff.
And then you want to take over my job?
I don't,
Basically? That's
no.
what- That's, your plan is to hire people and put them under my authority?
Sheriff, I want to save jobs. I want to save your deputies' jobs, and I'm trying to come up with ways and ways that we can save your guys' jobs. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, if that was the case, we wouldn't be here right now. Because you have funds in order to be able to, you know, to keep us whole.
And if we keep using those funds, we'll be bankrupt. We're going to go bankrupt.
It's gonna
We're at
cost
17 million.
More money in the long run when trying to replace deputies, and right now, we're under the impression we have 15 positions that we have to cut. 7 of them were unfilled, and about eight positions more. And if we make this other cut, or take this money out of what we're here for, about the 630,000, that's another 4 positions, minimum.
I have always, in the past, supported the use of road funds to fund your department because I understand the need for public safety. But we've reached a point that if we continue to do it, then we'll run the county bankrupt, and nobody will have a job.
I need to put a caveat in all this. It's not like we're not. We're using $1.2 million in road funds to get to this point.
The interest off the road fund.
No, it's road funds, right? Those are road funds. We're using $1.2 million in road funds to get to this point. So it's not like we're not using road funds. I need to make that clear, okay? And maybe not as much as we did in the past, not 3.4, not 3.1. But, but road funds are still being utilized. So, like, I don't want to talk in context that we're not using road funds. Because if we were truly not using road funds and living sustainably under our 59 cents per thousand and our miscellaneous money, we would be cutting $1.2 million more out of our budget. So we need to be clear about that.
Well, you said the staffing level was 6 to 1. It's that way because we've been cutting positions. We've been on the defensive here ever since we started this budget process. You guys show us 31%. Okay, now it's at 41% cuts. And so every time that we presented something that we could live with, but apparently you guys, well, the county can't. It was putting us on the defensive, having to cut more and more positions. Well, you know where all the money comes from is personnel.
Right.
Isn't it currently, it's 1.1 supervisor to 3.8 staff, which is the lowest that I've seen it ever, at least in this, in Jay's.
We cut from the bottom up because of union probably bumping rights.
No, I'm talking about the previous year.
This current year.
This current year, 1.1 to 3.8 staff, which is, if we look back at,
The open positions that are there.
this is what the
the org
reality
chart.
is of what you've got, what your employee census is. In 2008, it was 1 to 4.7 staff. In 2013, it was 1 to 8. That was the best. And I think, I'm not sure, what's the state average? Do we have an average for law enforcement?
I know that OSP is 1, the span of control is 1 to 8, Portland Police Bureau is 1 to 7. There's a couple more, but I'd be speculating if I told you.
How about your history and your,
My history is consistent with 1 to 8.
Well, I think in the proposed 24-25 staffing, it's proposed at 1 to 2.5. One supervisor for every 2.5 staff. Now, you're right, Sheriff. Once the Budget Committee adopts the budget, I believe you have control to decide those positions. But the Budget Committee has the right, as the public body, authorize the use of those funds to provide a suggestion on what that should look like for use of those funds. So you can choose to go against it. I believe that's within your priority. But when the Budget Committee approves these funds, they can approve them with the intent on how they're going to be used. But you can change that. I think that's...
Let me ask you a question. So what's the big deal about this marijuana money right now? What's your plans to, gonna take it back and we have to cut more positions or what?
Well, the intent of the marijuana, the marijuana money should be used for operations,
It is being used for operations.
but it was saved and not used. So we used road funds last year rather than use the marijuana money.
Approve that.
And the year before and the year before that as well.
And who approved those?
Well, let me tell you that it was recorded as miscellaneous revenue. It was never stipulated as a tax. And
Because it can't be. We did
no, read the statutes.
at the time it was put in, we had to sign a statement saying that we could not disclose where that money or how much it was.
I spoke with the Department of Revenue, and it says that you can't say how much each individual is selling or giving you per their tax. It says you can't tell anybody who's delinquent. You can't share the specifics of who's paying, delinquent, in the arrears, whatever, on that fund. But that is tax funds.
And it was
That
suggested
everybody
by the
knows.
commissioners, this is where it should be put. Since it was going to us, we put in a special project and listed it under miscellaneous revenue.
That was a mistake because you ended up using road funds instead of using money that was dedicated to operations. You used that
I don't
first.
approve the budget.
No, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter whether you approve it or
saying
not.
I used
I'm
it.
saying,
I didn't approve it.
well, you used it or did not use it, but the thing is, that mechanical decision, whoever made that foolish decision, that was a wrong decision.
And I-
So, it needs to, right now, you're stuck with a bunch of money that was not used and road funds were used in its stead. Unfortunately, that's just kind of
And the commission
aside.
knew our goal was to use that to pay for the radio repeaters up on the towers, because it was gonna be a big haul. And that's communication all over the county, not just us, but ambulance, road funds, fire, police. All those repeaters have to be replaced because they're no longer supported. And it's gonna cost a lot of money. And that's what we were trying to do. Yeah, we used some, like it was what we were, what we were authorized to do, and used it, sparingly, but we still have money coming in every year to build up to pay for those radio systems. If they go down, then we lose all communications.
We lost all communication
We
for,
have.
for a fair, right, I don't think that plan wasn't well executed. It doesn't really matter. The issue is that's tax revenue that was dedicated to operations. So operations they're an ongoing cost. It's part of, to be clear to the voters about where their money is being used, it needs to be disclosed in a way that people can see it. It wasn't, and it wasn't used toward operations. It was held. Now, if you had a special reserve fund that was dedicated to radio repeaters, and there was a plan in place, you can say that, but the fact is, if you look at the expenditures, there were all kinds of additional expenditures made over these past years, sometimes to the tune of like $130,000. So I don't know how serious you were about this supposed plan. I do have some questions about some of the things that were
right.
used, though.
Hold on, just a second. So I do have a question. So the commissioners had directed it to be used or saved for that purpose. And by my estimates, there was $780,000 of marijuana money that came in, and there's $435 left. So obviously, half of it, well, 40% of it was used for other things that you felt were necessary that was not inconsistent with saving for the towers. So I think we have a gap in,
Well, it
What we
wasn't
were-
all supposed to go to the towers. It was for our operations as well if we needed it.
but was it stipulated a percentage that was supposed to be put away? Was there a situation that, because.
For us, we made the decision to help pay for, what's that?
There was no percentage stipulated. It was, here's the money, it's for sheriff's operations.
Okay,
Things were purchased with it, and parts of it were saved. It wasn't thrown away. It was put in the sheriff's, it was put in there however it was put in there by the board at the time, whether it was right, whether it was wrong, whether it was whatever, all right? It wasn't, I can't say that word. It wasn't used unnecessarily. It was used for equipment for the sheriff's office, for stuff to support the sheriff's office, and over 50% of it was saved. So, and the intent was to either use the money to do the repeaters or to match a grant. That was our intent, and that intent was every budget committee or every budget board where that fund was discussed, that was said. It was said, this is where the marijuana tax money comes in. Parts of it are put into materials and services line items, and the rest of it is in a contingency. Every year where there's been an excess, it's been in a contingency contingencies can only be spent at the discretion of the board. You have to go to the board to approve to get your contingencies out. So there was never, the board allowed the money to go there. There was never any besides it's for the operations of the sheriff's office. That was the directive that was given to the money, and that's where it is. That's kind of the history on it. Some of you were here for parts of it, some of you weren't, so.
right, and so I think for all of us, it's we're all trying to grasp every angle and detail of this budget. We understand, like, this is the most important budget the county's faced in a long time. And so, you know, I guess the reason why these things are, I think it's important that these things are being brought forward, that they're discussed, that current budget committee members and board members are now knowledgeable about those dollars in anticipation of what can be expected annually. I just got the numbers for opioid. It looks like about $192,000 annually. So
That money, a lot of that money is for the wellness program, and we bought a mail scanner that all the county can use, and I'm not sure how much is left in that.
yeah, but, so I think, here's the thing, like, nobody here is expected to know everything, but collectively, I think generally we come up with some pretty decent ideas. Now, I understand if you're not going to be open to those ideas, but please don't discount that the budget committee has the ability to provide those ideas. Just because there's an idea being provided, nobody said there's nobody. In fact, with these ideas, you're increasing staff, right? And you're so. I mean, I think that now, should you choose to adopt those ideas?
I don't know how we're increasing staff when we're up to 15 cuts as already.
Increasing staff from the proposed staffing organizational
After the
chart
cuts.
that you provided, yeah. After the cut. So just to put it in perspective for everybody at home, currently, the sheriff's department is staffed for 53.5 FTEs, right? The one that you proposed cut down to 39, right? And so that is a 14.5, right? Is that right?
We've been asking for what the percentage is for all the cuts and how much money's been cut. We haven't received that yet, so I was just curious of that as well.
Well, no, just off the one you proposed, based off the adopted budget that we agreed upon on Thursday, you provided a staffing roster for what that would look like. And so that's what's at 39 staff, a reduction of 14.5. And so what Brad just proposed was to take that number from 39 to 44.
It was 43.
No, plus animal control.
Okay.
Would have been 44. So, I mean, I guess, and if you want to be a part of the conversation more than, I mean, that would be great.
So 44 positions, and you're complaining there's 6 staff or supervisors?
11. So no, you have, right now, your proposal is 11 supervisors and 28 staff, right? So 1 to 2.5 ratio. And so I think what he's saying is, hey, we move 3 supervisor positions, we add 4.
Those 15 positions put back in there, what would be the staff ratio?
The current staff ratio is 11 supervisors and 53.5, so it's a 1 to 3.8 staff ratio. Span of control is 1 to 3.8.
Okay.
That's current or proposed?
That's current.
Okay,
Proposed is 1 to 2.5.
okay.
So,
Brad's,
We've been building up the sheriff's office for the last 10 years that I've been the sheriff to have a reputation that we can, the reputation we have now in the county. And this has not hit the county yet, so I'm just. don't know.
no. So to provide background on that, so in 2013, now you took office 2014,
Correct.
but 2013, the sheriff's department had a total of 36 staff. And you had a 50-bed jail, patrol, civil, P&P, dispatch, SAR, and emergency management.
It wasn't really a 50-bed jail. There was, in the basement, it was a
Right.
work center that was sheetrocked in.
Right, but I know, it's been like that for a long time, but that's what those were the numbers that we had on, that we reported, right? So, and that was 2013, 36 staff, and that's what you survived. Currently, you built it to 53.5. So, I mean, when you say you built up the department, you did. You certainly did, by 17 staff from 2013. I don't know what it was in 2014. I didn't look in 14, but I imagine it wasn't too far off when you took over. So, yeah, I mean, you were able to add 17 positions. Through the budget committee and all the approval processes. Now we're just we have to right size. We have to balance back.
What I need to know is how much money other than what we've already done, are we gonna be cutting any more or are gonna be receiving any more funds?
So I'm confused.
Because it's already been approved for the cuts that we did with the 394,000. So are we adding more money back in or what?
So I am also a little confused on that.
I am too.
So in your proposal, does that include the additional revenues that came in over the weekend?
Yes,
It does.
yes.
Okay.
It's
They
taking them.
didn't come in, they were there.
Right, but they were
But they weren't.
reallocated.
They were there, but they were disguised. I'm not going to say that it was right. I'm not going to say it was correct, because it wasn't. They were there, but they need to be transparent. They were general fund dollars that should have been a transfer from the general fund to the sheriff's department for use.
Well, why
Not-
didn't they do that back when we first we got it? We did.
I have no idea.
We were authorized to do, and we did it well.
I have
It
no
may have,
idea.
it may have some connection with the fact that we also couldn't reconcile our books for the last 3 years. There was a lot of heavy-duty incompetence, which is being addressed right now.
We also,
There we go again. You're allowing him to talk for you guys and calling us incompetent.
I'm talking about the finance department, John.
Well, why don't you say that, Ted?
I
You
did,
said
I did.
incompetence, and You're looking right at me.
well,
But I'm talking to you.
okay, we did have issues with the previous finance department, which is definitely a factor here. Absolutely a factor here. And Sheriff, nobody's saying that you, Sheriff John Ward, intentionally did anything. Nobody's saying that. What we're trying to explain is that there were people in positions that put this money in a miscellaneous category. You look through the budget, you see miscellaneous.
Well, it has to be, you can't be saying marijuana money.
Actually, it can. Actually, it
So
can.
that was another issue with finance, right? So you can't disclose exactly who is paying it. You can't disclose how much each one is paying, but the total of the sum, you can, and you have to, actually.
But
It's what
also,
we
that
learned from DOR.
wasn't the sheriff's
Is that what I heard?
responsibility. The sheriff was acting at the direction of the finance department with that. That was misinformation. That was incompetence in the finance department. When I say we can't reconcile the books for 3 years, there's never been a time anybody's been asking you to reconcile the books. That's the finance department, and it didn't get done for 3 years. That's a problem. And the misinformation that they gave you regarding how that was supposed to be cloaked was a problem. It's a problem because taxpayers need to know where their money's going. So from now on, it'll be clarified, and the money that comes in is current revenue. That current revenue, whatever it is, 156,000 or whatever, that money is dedicated to the sheriff's office for operations in that year. So it'll be part of what you are funded. That's how that works.
So, but just to get back to what we have in front of us, the budget that we have in front of us, right? We have some adjustments that we need to look at. And as the budget committee, the one adjustment that I would like this group to examine is the jail offset. I feel like if we're only 100 and, I did, it was 100,
I discussed this with the captain earlier today. I'm not so sure that I'm going to take it down to 20 beds. I don't want to go through the jail reduction plan that we've been through before. we have internal controls that we can work with, the Senate Bill 48 and some matrix systems. I think we're going to leave it at 35 beds and do the best we can with it for now.
But if we figure out the 144,966 to get it at essentially what this year's budget was at 35, would it be confirmed that you would stay at 35? Okay, so that would be worth, I think, a discussion, right?
That's money.
Sorry, Sheriff, you didn't answer, but Phil was giving me the head nod back behind you, so I didn't want to feel like I wasn't.
We've talked about it, so.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I want to keep I want to keep as many beds as we can.
Okay, can I have a quick question on however it ends out, but I don't want to see a vote. You mentioned reducing communications, both supervisors.
Yes.
And communications. You do realize that those are your two most experienced people that come to work every day, that answer their phone when people call in sick.
And overtime.
And that cover a shift on a daily basis. And if you cut those two out, the communications department goes to nothing. And what you do with my position, you do with my position. That's whatever. But those two positions, so if in your shuffling money around, you take those two positions out of dispatch, then you lose your two most experienced people, and then putting them under, and then you get rid of the lieutenant out of the jail, and you put the management of dispatch, which is a 911 center and a dispatch center, a highly specialized field under the supervision of a sergeant in the jail that knows nothing about dispatch or 911 and has enough going on in the jail to try and supervise the people and the inmates in there, you've even messed it up even worse. So from the outside looking in and looking at numbers, that might look like, ooh, let's save some money here, but it doesn't work.
so,
just
just to address that, so in 2018, the jail sergeant oversaw dispatch.
and it
didn't
work.
Okay, so no, Jeremy, I'm not trying to talk to you right now. Hold on. Thank you.
Hold on.
Just wait.
Let Jay finish.
Appreciate you. So, in 2008, there was a 911 supervisor and 7 dispatchers. In 2013, there were 7 deputies, no supervisors. In 2018, there were 7 deputies, no supervisors. In 2023, there's 2 supervisors and 7.5 deputies. So now, do we have metrics that say that's how many more calls we're receiving to support 2.5 additional staff, which happen to be the supervisors?
We have a very young staff, and a lot of times we have people out on medical, they want to get sick all the time, whatever. Those 2 people right there that you're talking about are always there and supervising that. It has to be. What do you think I put people in places underneath me in places that need to be supervised? That's where I have all my experience, all my training, people with training. If we start to bring people back, I don't have anybody to train them if we cut those positions. Does that make sense?
Sure, no, I understand. So,
Can I just point out that we're not cutting people? We're not calling names, or the union and their contract will allocate how people fall with experience. We have no control over how people bump down and fall.
You want to cut the positions of supervisors, though, is what.
But if we cut, let's say, a sergeant position, and they've been here the longest, they have bumping rights. And that has, so when we're not cutting a specific individual. If they're cutting a position, how that all falls down, we don't get to choose who's in those positions. The union gets to choose who's in those positions. And we've
Apparently, you
provided
guys
that
have never
information.
run a dispatch center or a jail or a sheriff's office because I'm telling you, it doesn't work.
We don't get to choose those
I've been doing it
positions,
for
though.
33 years, okay? So I know what works and what doesn't work.
So while it's true you don't get to choose, you're not putting names on it. When the proposal that's being proposed says lieutenant and captain, we don't have bumping rights. You're losing that experience. There's 75 years of experience that's going to be gone. And that's all over the place.
And we don't have any control over that. I mean.
Correct, you don't.
Yeah, I mean.
So to throw out that we're going to throw away all of that experience, that's irresponsible of this county. And to Jay's point, back in 2015, I was the corporal in the jail, and I was a corporal over dispatch as well. It didn't work. That's why we went to the sheriff and we said, we can't do this. We don't know what we're doing. We have to run and manage the jail on top of all of that. We can't do that. Also, in the jail, there's new rules. That's why we have as many supervisors as we do in the jail. Same thing with patrol. They have to be able to supervise on both ends of the week. So you're cutting experience. You're going to have an office here of 2 or 3 years of experience. And that's what you're looking at. So you may be saving money here today doing that, but in the long run, that's where the liability is going to come in. And as Keena has mentioned, sergeants are still in the union. The sergeants are the most expensive people to this county in the sheriff's office. They get overtime. My sergeant today makes more money than I do because he gets overtime. So that's what you're cutting. You're not saving any money. So it looks like it on paper, but you're not.
We only have this much money to work with. We can't go outside of our means, period. We are in a horrific situation
And we
with the funding that
understand
we have.
Don't mean to interrupt
so-
you, but we understand that. But when you try to put positions in, to lay people off and then put people in those positions that aren't certified or whatever, you're looking at a lot of problems. And I'm not going to supervise those guys. I mean, I don't like your plan, Brad. Point blank, I don't like it. Because
Okay.
it's not, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me how much money we have, we'll build a budget around that, and then we'll move on. Don't tell me how to run my office, because the people who elected me tell me how to run my office. And apparently they like what they've seen so far.
John, when you see the 1 to 8 and the 1 to 2.5, I mean, do you think it's a little bit top heavy or not? I mean,
It is now, but I'm keeping my most experienced deputies in their positions. They have what it takes to help me run this place. The young ones don't. They're
So,
barely trying to figure out how to stop a vehicle out there.
right,
They're being killed.
so you're keeping all the Deputy 3 positions, your most experienced deputies. Do you need 11 supervisors for your most experienced people?
There isn't going to be 11 supervisors.
In your proposed budget, there is. In your proposed budget,
They may be
the 14
considered a
the 14.5
lieutenant
cuts,
or sergeant or whatever, but they earn that position. If we didn't have places where people can or want to get to, like from a deputy to a training officer or a sergeant or lieutenant or.
right, advancement opportunities, I understand. But at some point, we're top-heavy, right, in administration.
Because of all the cuts we've had to make so far.
Well, I mean, you have one of the healthiest staffed departments that you've had in 20 years. So you've built it up.
Wrong with that?
No, but you said your staffing ratio is why it is because you had to make cuts to get to where you are. Currently, it's 1 to 3.8 staff to supervisor ratio, right? So that's a strong number. With these cuts, the 14.5 positions you're proposing to cut are all deputies, right? So
Because
you're
they're
gonna,
start
so
from
it's,
the bottom up, they're going to be bumping rights.
so it'll be 11 supervisors with the rest cuts deputies, leaving you at a 1 to 2.5 ratio. Now, here's the thing.
They won't be supervisors, they'll be in their position as sergeant, detective, or whatever.
they'll bump down.
No, they're not bumping down, it's just who they're gonna supervise. They'll just be there to handle what we need to handle. and it's gonna be tough.
I mean, it's correct to assume that these supervisors weren't hired as supervisors. They worked their way up through serving the county over the.
Yes.
Some, I don't know all of them. I don't know if anybody was brought over as a supervisor.
Right. But like as a model of running an efficient business, you would want to prioritize those who are the most capable at their job. I would rather run a restaurant with less people who are very capable that can do all sorts of different jobs and let the new people go if I had to from an efficiency standpoint. So I hear a lot of talk about supervisors, too many supervisors, but to me I hear longevity, I hear loyalty, I hear service to our county for, this is what I would assume. And so from my perspective, it feels that we're not taking a human perspective of it. We're just serious. I mean, I know we have a budget committee and we are due to look at money, and it's not. But there is a human element, and to me, the people who have earned the right to become a supervisor within our county, they should be treated and helped. We should do what we can to keep those people who have been here clearly a long time to gain that position. I just keep hearing that. I just want.
So, and I agree with you, but we can't have a department that's all supervisors. We can't pay for that.
And have
We
a
can't
restaurant
afford
full of
it.
managers.
We can't afford it. I mean, I wish we could, but we can't. I mean, department, you don't see a department that's all sergeants. I mean, it's not, we can't pay for that.
I agree to a certain extent, but I also agree that when it comes to efficiency and somebody who can do their job,
Right.
better,
Sure.
we could do with one or two less, perhaps, if we have everybody that's stars at their job. The pure numbers of it don't necessarily break down to, okay, it has to be 43 versus 39.
Right.
And maybe these 39 are going to be far more efficient than the 43.
And I agree with your point. There is no substitute for experience. Absolutely, especially in this profession. An experienced guy that has seen and done more than somebody less experienced absolutely is impactful. And you know what? If we had the money, I wouldn't have a problem having all sergeants. But we don't have that money. We just don't. And there's nothing on the horizon that appears that we're going to get it. I mean, look at how the levy failed. And so what's next? What are we going to do? I'm thinking about next year too.
Yeah, no,
And the year after that. And so what are we setting up for right now?
Special district for law enforcement, period.
We need a funding solution, and that may be the right one. You're right. That may be the right one.
So,
I have a solution, but we'll have to talk offline with it.
okay. So what's being proposed right now is basically, is the budget that we approved plus reallocating some different revenues that were not being allocated before into personnel, increasing or allocating opioid money towards two positions, and reallocating animal control to be under the sheriff. I think that's what's being proposed.
Let me see your mic for a minute.
Mike?
You talked about a CRO position. I want public to know, we're talking about, we have one school.
SRO, that would be the SRO.
SRO or CRO?
Well, you said CRO.
CRO is Community Resource Officer. SRO is School Resource Officer. They're two
Maybe.
positions.
We have one school in the county, and it's a very small school. So is that one SRO?
Well, we have 4 schools.
in
We have
the
4.
county?
Yeah, we have 4 schools. We have
In the
we have-
city,
Sure. They're in the county. They're still in the county, right? The city folks still pay 59 cents on the 1,000 too. And in essence, I mean, I couldn't imagine the school district's not.
Would it be then
Juvenile
appropriate?
department works in there.
Would it be appropriate then to reallocate that opioid money to
Juvenile?
the cities?
For SROs within the
If-
cities?
Yeah, I mean, I thought all the schools were, I thought this is a thing that could be like a
Could be.
joint approach, but
So the SRO proposal I'm talking about, Sheriff, it impacts all the schools, all across the board, every school. Our deputy would be involved countywide and providing that level of special expertise to address that problem through the funding of the money that we currently have that's available and not being used.
So I didn't really get the answer I was looking for, so does there have any more questions for me? I want to give other people a chance to talk.
If I understand correctly, you want a number, and then you'll run your department, and different than what Brad's plan was. So Brad had a
Right.
plan. Yep,
Otherwise,
I
he can be
gotcha.
the sheriff, and
Yep.
that's not what people didn't elect him for.
And I don't want to be the sheriff. I have no intention.
In my office, because I've been doing it, I know a lot more about it. I don't know how many deputies or officers you had in your last Fresno. I'm sure there's over a couple hundred. How many lieutenants, how many captains, how many sergeants did you have?
We had nearly 1,000 officers. We had,
It's a lot different
think
from running a big
it-
agency like that.
it's very different. It's night and day, absolutely night and day. Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you at all.
Sheriff, this is going to sound rhetorical, but you just said, if I don't like Brad's plan, Brad wants to do it, he can be the sheriff. You were elected also to listen to the people, right?
To the people, yes.
Yeah, and so this budget committee is comprised of individuals who represent the community, one from south, one from north, one from
All I know is I've been
central.
on defensive for the last 2 months, having to make cuts and not being able to tell my people what's going on. So that's what I'm worried about.
Okay. So, yeah. Oh, can you give him your microphone?
In a couple of years, we can afford some more mics, hopefully.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Just had a couple of questions. So when Brad talked to me a couple Sundays ago, mentioned the discovery of the marijuana money and some more potential and some reallocations and so forth. So just want you guys to know getting us back together made sense. So, but on the first off, no other changes anywhere else, right, Keena? Okay, so the rest of we haven't done anything there, okay. Secondly, the opiate money was not anything we had before, right?
No, it was not.
So that was unrealized revenue.
And where has that been sitting? Or where is it, or has it been expensed, or?
So originally,
That's as far as it goes.
okay, so originally those monies came into a 190 fund, which was set up as unearned revenue, which was an inaccurate reference of the money, because unearned revenue is a liability that you don't include in your books, right? In that. So that's why it is not referenced in last year's money. When did it come in first? 22, whatever, but that's why it wasn't referenced, because it was kind of inaccurately recorded again.
But it was spent.
No,
Some of it was spent.
very little of it. No, $121,000 of it was spent here, this fiscal year, I believe it was, FY '20.
For the mail scanner?
Yes, 24, I believe.
Bail scanner and a wellness program is what
Yeah,
that money went
and
to.
that's where it's gone. Juvenile's not spent any of that money.
So this
Wellness
new,
program's gonna be reoccurring cost too.
okay, so this new sheet that we have now,
Yes,
which we didn't have before.
correct.
Okay. So this is the current balance then?
Yes.
Okay. And when we talked about reserves before, this never came up, right?
No.
Okay.
And it's restricted, 100%
But
restricted.
why would that be? Why wouldn't we know about that?
Again, this was recorded as unearned revenue. It wasn't recurrent or recorded as a restricted revenue, or it kind of comes in as money that is owed out, like a pass-through type thing, because you don't earn it until you either do a service or whatever, which wasn't accurately recorded in the finance side.
Okay.
Where should it have, what should it have said? That,
It needs to have its own reserve fund, entirely its own reserved fund.
it would say opioid?
Yes,
And do we have that now?
yes.
Okay.
I see. So it's
That's why
not,
you've
so
been-
it's not money we have, it's money that we have access to.
No, we do have that.
Okay.
That's what we.
Okay, so back to my
before it
question. So
was-
how do we not know we have $400,000?
Because before it was recorded as money we have access to. Now it's money that we have.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's a good way of putting it when you said that.
Well, that makes sense in the way I work, but anyway, I guess that makes sense to you guys. Okay.
I'd just like to say, it's the same thing I told the sheriff earlier. That it was, there are a lot of things done wrong over the last few years.
Okay.
Big time.
Okay. And then just in general, so for kind of our benefit, just to rehash kind of a couple of Fridays ago or Thursday, whatever day it was. So we had the numbers in my head. I think it was 794 is what we were short, or that was the difference, I believe.
690 something, I think.
690.
So we
That's right, because we found you found the $100,000
Yep.
mistake,
And then we moved the 300.
and then we moved the 300 from the
394.
down to 394. Okay. And when he walked out of the room, I remember that was the number you walked away with, right?
Right.
Okay,
To cut, and then we went in on the weekend and did that.
correct. Okay.
You guys approved it.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
We made the motion to adopt that.
That
Well,
particular
well,
one,
We made the motion, and then he went and did the work, and then came back with whatever, I guess you guys
Correct.
talked on a weekend, or whatever it was.
Yes.
So what's the number today? What's the difference today? I don't think we,
All those are balanced now. So what we did is we took the special projects. Commissioner Alcorn assigned me to break out special projects from beginning to end. So I broke out the special projects, came across those years, what it was made up of. Ended up figuring out that there's reserve that is in there that is due to, or reserves for canines, reserve for a sonar machine, and then what
I never heard about the sonar, but can you explain what that is?
There were two $1,000 donations that were made, I believe, in 1920-ish.
And the sonar's been purchased, it's in the road jet. It was purchased years ago and it's mounted in the road jet. Yeah, that's what it was for. And it's mounted in the road jet and we use it
So-
when we're doing search.
So wherever it was bought out of, wasn't bought out of where the donation lives. And again, it's just mixed-matched financials, essentially. So if it has been expended, then that's $2,000 less that you have in that fund that we will have to remove. But we then allocated out, or came across what is the unspent balance of the marijuana dollars. And then, so move those back to the general fund. Then we show that there's a transfer
so
of,
let's get the numbers, though.
Okay.
Let's walk through the numbers. Unless you guys have it. I don't have it in my head. You guys have it?
and on the secretive thing, just let me touch on really quickly. So under the secrecy clause that they make us sign, it is also assigned to transient tax, cigarette tax, tobacco tax, emergency communications tax, oil and gas tax, hazardous substance tax, and petroleum tax. Those are all the potential municipality taxes that a county will get. We all talk about them because those are all the taxes that we receive. It just says that we cannot talk about who pays them, how much, whether somebody hasn't paid, there's a penalty, or whatever. Those are what we can and cannot talk about. And when I spoke to the Department of Revenue, I spoke to a policy analyst directly to explain to me the restrictions, the non-restrictions, what we can, what we can't do. He sent us new updated forms because the ones that we had were very ancient or outdated for the Secrecy Act. And we're all, since we have new people in the office, we're all gonna sign them, including commissioners, and then we'll move forward with those. But, that limits what we can and cannot talk about, kind of
So,
disclose
so we
that.
start with 500,000 he was gonna put in when we left the other.
Yes, then they submitted us a budget that increased that by another $130,000. What I got back, had that transfer from special projects, was $130,000 more.
On the Saturday after.
Oh, yes.
So 630,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Then there were increases of fees that they anticipated they would receive. So we can't change those, once we've all approved, or you guys approved that budget, we can't make those changes. That then is against
How much
budget.
were the fees?
Oh,
Like $7,000.
okay.
Very little.
there were fees
More to
in
the
there.
point, was there $630,000 available in that fund?
So, when I did the analysis of that fund in the 18, 19, 19, 20 year, there was so your ending fund balance in that fund was $165,000, which should be the beginning fund balance of your restricted funds the following year. That was overinflated by $139,000, which I tracked through that whole fund and went inside and out of every transaction, and I have no idea where that additional $139,000 from ending fund reserves to beginning fund reserves happened. So I am going to meet with our auditor, and because I think that was an error back in those years, and adjust it. So I took that calculation of $139,000 out, because again, your ending fund and your beginning fund have to match. They don't go from there. So, with the restrictions that are in that fund, the ending fund balance number, that allotted about $445,000 of unused funds in that year for unused marijuana funds that would move into general fund. Okay,
Of the 500 he was putting.
correct.
And, okay,
So there wasn't 500, there was
45,
445 available.
once we do that math.
There were also some errors in the fringe and the wages as calculated by the sheriff's department that she fixed as well, if I'm
When
not
when I was
mistaken.
going through the personnel numbers, I just wanted, or when I got the roster of positions, I went through and added things in to see how it would calculate out. And
We never added the fringe and
Adjust it.
other things, because we don't know those numbers. That was always been up to finance to tell us those numbers.
so those numbers they're on a spreadsheet that goes about, that includes the COLA that's on it and everything.
But we didn't have those numbers.
I was going back and forth with Phil on those worksheets.
I will say, though, I don't believe the worksheet that I have has this year's numbers in it. I was operating with what I had to provide the numbers as close as we could. But the sheriff's right. Historically, whenever we've done our budget, the county, the finance office, the HR department always supplies these year FTEs, because otherwise, I mean, they have it in all of their stuff that has, this person starts on this day, this is when this is when they get their step increase, this is when they get their COLA, and to figure out, you know, instead of looking at it general overall as if you get a 5% cost of living and a 3.4, so that's 8.4% per year, and calculating it for the full year, finance has always calculated those down to what they are, which those numbers then affect your PERS, they affect your workers' comp, they affect all those other numbers. So yes, were we off $1 or so, and were we off, I mean, we were working with the numbers that we have in our budget. We're working with financial sheets that are as current as they can be, but aren't 100% correct, and your finance director will tell you that also. So the fact that, like I said, we're working with numbers the numbers we have, so that's where that's at. And if you look, we left $37,000 in there and $10,000, which is not bad coming to what's left for the K-9 program, which is what you said, about 49,000. So we left 37 in contingency and 10,000 in the K-9 line item. Everything else we transferred over which would include the revenue for the marijuana tax money this year. Everything else we transferred over into Crim Civ to help try and keep people. You guys just have a different way of doing it, so. Hasn't all been said in this meeting. There's been talk around town. There's been other stuff going around before we even get into this meeting about hiding stuff and inappropriate stuff and everything else. We're working with the numbers that we have under the system that we were given, and that's where we're at, so.
There was a big reduction in administrative services too because of cuts to the positions.
So,
FTEs, cuts to FTEs.
so
And if we had more cuts, then that number would have to drop as well.
So whether there was, I guess my big thing is whether there was 450 or 630, we were working with the numbers that we had in front of us, and that's what they added up to. So,
And Captain, you're right. There are a lot of rumors that go around town, and I try not to give them too much credibility.
well, when they're coming from people that I'm sorry, our commissioner-elect, that's, so.
I think what we gotta be careful of here is saying, you know, you said it, Phil, and we gotta quit this. You can't say your finance director. She's we're all in this together. So I know it's not that big a deal, but we gotta get on that same page.
I actually have a very good working.
I know you do, but we just gotta, it's not you against us or us against you. We have got to come together and figure this out, and that's what we're doing.
I was just going to say, the point that you're going for is moot. I was answering Dan Bratton's question because I needed to let him know why those numbers aren't the same. We don't, there's $162,000 in 2021 that showed up in the jail budget. Where did that come from? It came out of road funds and it wasn't appropriated under the normal, where'd that come from? We don't know.
Research on that. I don't believe that we knew anything about it.
I don't either. I don't believe you did either. There's no evidence of it.
If you really think about it, and I've talked to a lot of different sheriffs about this, I have an argument that, indirect cost of patrol, you go out and arrest somebody and you bring them to jail, that's an indirect cost of patrol because they're taking care of that prisoner that you brought in. So that was a small amount of money. I would imagine that's why somebody probably put that in there, just to balance the budget.
It may well be, but again, that's a violation of every kind of budget law. That's just not,
I think there's an argument because the indirect costs even goes far as our dispatch. It says not limited to.
But there's no argument unless there's board action, and there's no board action.
And I would also say part of the problem is the budget process has been different just about every year. And different people have been involved just about every year. And the finance director position is a pivotal position to this county. And the last couple of years have been a struggle prior to Keena. Jay, your point?
I just have one last question so we can discuss some of this budget items, but, so question I have is, if you're allocated the opioid money for a CRO and an SRO, do you plan to hire and report on that for those dollars?
That's something we have to discuss.
Okay,
This is not the place to do that.
well, it is, because we're gonna be
No, it isn't,
allocating the money.
because you're putting me on the spot whether I'm gonna have to hire somebody that you guys want in that position and I have to supervise them.
Couldn't we use somebody that
Okay, so,
you already have? I mean, if
There it
there's,
is. That's a good question.
if there's layoffs, then there's,
There's been talk about, having an uncertified person come out and serve civil papers. I'm not gonna allow that because,
okay, so.
Brad, you know that as well as I do, it's a dangerous
answers-
situation out there when you put somebody
Animal
there
control.
that's not trained and certified serving papers. Deputies get shot serving papers.
And everything your agency does is dangerous, John. There are ways to train a non-sworn person to do that. But,
I'm not gonna
but I
lay
agree.
somebody off just to hire somebody.
And I think the point of the CRO and the point of the SRO position is rather than laying somebody off, rather than getting rid of a deputy, rather than losing someone, this is an opportunity to put that sworn deputy in one of these positions so they don't lose their job.
Train them up.
Okay, so what we learned here, just back to the numbers. What we learned here then, in the budget that we approved, so we had $55,000 in to add to the 394. Because there's only 445 in there,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
So if you took the whole fund,
So, okay. so-
I'm just trying to get to where we were
Sure.
and where we are. That's
Okay.
what I'm trying to understand.
So what we've done
That makes
is-
sense to you guys?
Yep.
Okay.
So, taking the 445 out, moving that to the general fund increases the allocation amount that.
Okay, but before we move it, let's just talk about, so we found out the 500 wasn't going, we were 55,000 short. He said he's
Yeah,
going to put
essentially,
500
yeah.
in. He doesn't have the 500 to put in.
Yeah.
Right? And he didn't have the 130 or so, I
Correct.
guess, either, that he thought he might have on Saturday.
Yep.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. So we all understand that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so we're back to 45,000 or $55,000 more on the 394,
Correct.
okay?
Okay, so we've got that.
See where I'm going? I just
Yep,
wanna get-
I see exactly where you're going.
Okay.
So we have that 445,000 we moved into general fund, okay? So then,
Let's stop there for a second. So let's get that number. So we got 449, is that right?
445.
No. Take the 394 plus the 55. Now he's trying to find 449, right?
So we're not basing it on his shortfall number, because they presented us with a different budget entirely. Meaning it added
But for when
on,
we left the other day,
yes,
we
We
had,
wanted them
we
to
were
cut.
55, the numbers we had were 55,000 off. Because 500 in there, it wasn't 500, it was only 445,
correct,
correct?
yeah.
Okay. So instead of 394, you add 55 to that loss, or to that deficit, right?
Yeah,
So we really walked out of here needing 449.
correct.
That's right. 439,
If you
excuse
do
me.
that way, yes.
Okay. So we know that. All right. So then John went and did some work, thought he had 130, which he didn't have. He came back, said, I can make this work. I'm going to add 130 and some other things he was going to do.
Correct.
Okay.
And I received a secondary email from another department in the sheriff's office about the transfer amount. The parole and probation to the jail, okay?
Okay.
Reported this all. That then brought us to Commissioner Alcorn giving some suggestions.
Which, by the way, just the fact that there was only 45 is a good reason to get us back together, because now we're
Yes, yes.
we're off there.
No, yeah. So Commissioner Alcorn then asked me to run some numbers. Gave me different scenarios, had me run those numbers. We ran those numbers. We did an exercise to plug them in, reevaluated the numbers that were put in or suggested by the sheriff's office, discovered that we could move some money from corrections based on Commissioner Alcorn's suggestion. That backfills. There were some other reductions that we could do in for FTEs, for the indirect cost in there. We did the math based on all the numbers we have, and it balances out across those funds. When we moved money from civil, jail, communications, patrol, the special projects fund, reallocating those across with what Commissioner Alcorn suggested, it balanced the funds out.
Well, like the
And that's
captain
what I
said
thought.
earlier, if you take the supervision out of dispatch, you might as well give the dispatch to somebody else, because it won't work. I'm sorry, but it just won't work.
When you say balance the funds out, balance the funds to,
All the funds, general fund, the transfers,
right?
we were able to make up the shortfall in criminal, civil, and patrol. We were able to make up those shortfalls
The 394?
based on the numbers that Commissioner Alcorn suggested. Not the 394, based on the positions that he suggests.
Okay, which is the sheet we got today.
Correct.
Okay.
which I'm just gonna throw this in there because I'm gonna throw this in there, which is reorganizing the sheriff's office and balancing the sheriff's office budget without getting any input from the sheriff's office. Taking it upon yourselves, which you're the Board of Commissioners, and I know this isn't helping the problem, but taking it upon yourselves to balance the sheriff's budget without the input from the sheriff. That's what's happening.
Well, actually,
Whether you're
actually,
reorganizing the sheriff's office without the input of the sheriff.
actually, Phil, for the past 8 months, I've been trying to,
You've been trying to get us to hire a CRO, a community resource officer, to go deal with homeless people, which the sheriff, that's been most of it. That's been the whole, no matter how you want to disguise it, that's the basis of that position, is dealing with the homelessness and the problems that they create.
like Rainbow Rock.
Right, like Rainbow Rock, which is when the people that are responsible for that property won't touch it, you expect us to do it when we have Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rulings that say, don't do this to people that are homeless. We can have this discussion all day long, but we disagree on this.
I think the
That's
taxpayers
the position-
expect somebody to do something. That's
That's
probably
the
it.
position that the sheriff has taken, is that he doesn't want that position. This is
Well,
the first we've heard
I don't
of it.
want to get the county sued, and I don't want to get my deputies lose qualified immunity.
This is the first that I've heard of an SRO position that could be available. You sprung this on the sheriff. I actually like the idea. Yes, we are only responsible jurisdictional-wise for one school, but I was a DARE officer early in my career, and I worked at every school in the county. I'm okay with that. So I think that's a great idea. That's a great way to keep somebody employed. But yes, jurisdictionally, we're only responsible for one of the schools that are outside of the city limits. But again, I understand on the CRO position, but that's the only position that you came to us that I'm aware of to
Well,
create.
I think we had a more in-depth conversation before this levy was created and presented to the people, and I tried very hard to offer input and encourage and make some suggestions that I think would have been impactful to the levy. And none of those things were followed up on or done. So we have had conversations.
You guys keep forgetting that we didn't have no data. We lost everything that we had, and what's that? I just won't go there.
But we do have data, Sheriff, we do.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, okay, so the positions, if there's money to fund positions, that's okay, but it's the whole reorganization. Like I said, you do with my job whatever you choose. I'm talking about our other employees. We have a Lieutenant John Inslee, who you just said we'll get rid of, that has given almost, 33 plus years to this community, and we're just gonna say, oh, ex-Nix, goodbye to you? He's one of your most experienced officers who takes just as many calls for service as most of the deputies, but, oh, you know what, you guys are making decisions about people that you're looking at it on paper and you do not know how this organization runs.
Wouldn't a guy like Ansley have bumping rights?
No,
No.
he doesn't. He's a non-represented person out of the union.
Was he ever in the union?
Long
It
time
doesn't
ago.
matter.
No, it actually does matter.
Right? If you look at he's not in the union, so he's not represented by the union.
At this time, yeah.
Well,
My
in that case,
understand,
then I have bumping rights.
My-
It's no different.
my understanding is there would be, but
Yeah. So regardless, and I totally understand that we're not looking at this, there is a very personal aspect to all of this. All of that is out of our control because of the collective bargaining agreement that we have. Just so we all know, it's all out of our control. We do not get to choose who stays and who goes. And the union has made that stance very clear. They've requested seniority list. They've requested positions. We are going to provide it based on the law. And we have to follow this agreement that we have with the collective bargaining. We don't get to choose. And I understand 100% that this is a nightmare and a lot of words that I can't say or won't say publicly. But this is the hand that we're dealt. And I know it's passionate, I know it's important, but we have to make a decision. We have to move forward. We have to be respectful, and these three people up here are the ones that are gonna answer to it in the end, right?
I'm going to ask
They're the
a
responsibility.
question one more time. I need to know what the bottom line number is that we have to build our budget to.
That's what we're
Trying to get to. So just following up a little bit more. So then on the road fund, then we've reduced that by 300,000, it looks like, right?
No, that's still required.
Well, we have 1,180,000.
Right, it was 880 plus the 300,000 forward
It was
interest.
600. Is it
No, it
No,
was
it was
300.
300? Okay.
It was 6 months at 6 months at 50.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So the only thing we did is we reallocated across those funds based on Commissioner Alcorn's suggestion.
Right. Okay.
And it just takes us down to,
What happens at the end of 6 months?
More cuts.
if
Right.
there's no funding,
If we have created a funding solution.
So it's not realistic that there will be a funding solution by the end of this year. That's not a realistic position to take. And everybody here seems to have been living in some sort of fantasy land for a long time. If there's going to be a funding solution that works, first of all, the sheriff's department has to get efficient. It has to be open to new ideas and communicate that to the public in a way that the public believes it. I don't care what anybody thinks about how the public feels about them. The levy was very clear. 70% of the people voted it down. So they don't trust the representations that this county and the sheriff's department made to it, and I can't blame them.
So,
so what we have to work with is that what's in this right here?
yes,
Okay.
that includes the marijuana funds, the proposed numbers that Commissioner Alcorn suggested with the positions.
and, keep in mind, if we do lose those two positions, and I'm not going to quit trying to find a funding solution. I will never give up, especially on public safety. And I'm going to continue to try. But what's possible, what's probable, does that look promising? Absolutely not. But if we lose those two positions, then we would have 6 supervisors and 3 deputies for patrol.
Can I make a suggestion? I know we're all kind of getting a little tired here. We've been here a while. Can we have the public that's, I don't know how many speaker slips, you got 3 minutes per each one, so they can talk and leave if they want?
What does the committee want to do? You guys,
I'm good with that.
well, we'd have to modify the agenda. I don't know. Can we do that?
Yeah.
They've been sitting here a long time being patient, so I would imagine they'd like to speak. They got other lives too.
Yeah, whoever, I don't have a problem with whoever would like to speak now and.
Recommendations from the committee?
I like that idea.
Nick? Sure. You good with that, Dan? Yes. All right, then why don't we'll take a pause from discussion. We'll move to public comments. I have a few slips here. First up is former Commissioner Pash. You're first up. Comments. We're still in discussion. We took a pause from that to allow everybody to speak.
Well, I'm not here to really speak about the budget. What I'm here to speak about is, and you even referenced it, is that it was the failure of the ballot measure. And I just want to bring something up to you that I've been doing a study of the last, a few weeks ago I came in and talked to Ted about another possibility of a way to fund the county, the sheriff's department for additional revenues. But since then, I've been doing a study about some ways to be creative, get creative financing for
to run counties. And if you'll look, just do Google searches on some of the different ways that counties and cities in this state, the state of Oregon, much less the state of California, because I did a study in both states, fund their sheriff's department, their safety officers, all those kind of things. It's quite an education that you'll get. Of those, I mean, put my glasses on here real quick. The city of Corvallis, they charge a public public safety fee and a fire safety fee through their utility bills.
So does the city of Brookings. You can do that as a municipality when you have utilities. But
Yeah.
if you don't have utilities, you can't provide that.
Right. So I'm just bringing up a couple different things that I read. Other urban counties charge criminal justice fees. Some charge public safety fees, which I don't agree I don't agree with any of these running it through utility bills, because you're putting a burden on the elderly of the county. Some put an ambulatory service fee that connects to the sheriff's department because they answer the calls. Anyway, the reason I wanted to come in and bring something up, I would like this county to look at the possibility of a public safety fee. It's done in a lot of counties in the country. It's done through a vote, but it does not burden, the way that I would set it up is it does not burden the people that pay property taxes in this county. And I think the biggest complaint with the way that what we tried to get through on this past ballot, the homeowners, the people that pay taxes, felt like they were being burdened with something, and it was unfair. Because if you've got somebody driving from Washington to California and they get in an accident and they need services, they're going to use the services of the county. So it's not just for residents. I believe that everyone that uses the services of the county should pay equally. So if you were to do some kind of a public safety fee where everyone is charged equally, and get the cities on board with that, so that, let's say, and I'm just throwing numbers out because we're in a meeting and I don't want to go over too much time, but the county gets so much money, and then the city split by population the rest of that fund, so maybe the county gets 50% and the other cities in the county get, per population, the rest of that money they can divide up. But whatever that number is, I just ran some numbers off the top of my head, and I'm not going to mention them because they're probably not accurate, but it was astounding to me how much money could be derived from, I mean, if you look at the TLT tax, what we get from that is 7 figures annually, or it has been, close to that. So if you were to do a countywide public safety fee, a 3-cent fee, a 4-cent fee to restaurants, stores, hotels throughout the county, and just figure out how you want to address that and what you want to put that fee onto, I think the tourists of the county would probably bear more of the burden of that than the people that live in the county. And it is a way that you could earmark all of that money to the sheriff's department, and then the rest of that money that goes to the cities could be earmarked to their law enforcement, the respective law enforcements for those cities. If you want to talk to me further about it, you all got my number, and I would love to sit down with whoever and go over some numbers that I have and some more information, and see if we could get it on a ballot for November.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Next up is recline.
Thank you, board members and the Budget Committee, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ree Klein, and I am a Gold Beach resident outside the city limits. I attended the first 2 budget meetings and watched much of the recorded meeting from May 31st, so I would like to acknowledge, 1, the difficult work by all the county departments in working to submit budgets that will keep the county operating within its limited resources. Number 2, I would like to acknowledge Keena Wolf, who clearly deserves recognition for her finance knowledge, her ability to whip out budgets, and to fluently speak about the numbers. Number 3, the Board of Commissioners, who did what they said they would do and took a significant pay cut to help the shortfall that the county faces. Finally, all three of you, Budget Committee members, should be highly acknowledged. And in particular, one of the Budget Committee members, I believe that was you, Dave, in the video that I watched from the last meeting, raised a critically important point that during the May 30, you said something to the effect that the public's perception of the failed levy was that it was being sold as an imperative in order to secure public safety, that if the levy failed, the community would suffer from the gut of the Sheriff's Department. And this is, as the current budget process has unfolded, it is clear that while the Sheriff's Department has had to make cuts, many of the other departments in the county had to make cuts as much as 41% to cover the revenue shortfall. And that was not made clear to voters. In addition, Ted brought to light that in prior years, funds were being improperly moved around, which is not allowed by law. In light of these facts, gaining public trust will be an uphill battle. With that said, I believe the board intends to present a new levy to the voters in November. If that is true, I urge you to hold off. Please do not come back to the voters before doing the following. Number 1, conduct and document a post-mortem analysis to learn from the measure's failure. Number 2, hold several town halls to explain to the voters what the board learned and from the last experience and what has been done to keep the county solvent and to encourage voters to get more involved. Honesty will go a long way to garnering public support if and when you do present a revised levy. Number 3, live with the approved budget for a year. Number 4, hold workshops designed to help voters understand the county's budget. Informed voters are more likely to support the board rather than fight it. That budget is complicated, and I'm the numbers person to some degree, not to your standard, but it's very difficult, and it's so easy for people to misunderstand. Number 5, create a page on the county's website that shows new revenue projects currently in process with a chronological history of the progress being made and potential funding sources on the radar screen for exploration, like the one Mr. Passage just suggested was great, and process improvement projects underway with the status of each project and how much that project is anticipated to save the county. If the board insists on moving forward with a November levy, please consider the following. The post-mortem analysis I mentioned earlier is vital for gaining trust and support. Number 2, how will you involve the community early in the process? The survey that was conducted last year was not viewed positively by the community. A different approach is definitely needed. Number 3, it's imperative that the community sees an action plan for other funding initiatives, as I mentioned earlier. On May 13, 2024, I emailed the board and Sheriff Ward a document that Walt Keys and I collaborated on, which is titled Measure 8-114, Fiscal Rules, Procedures, and Accountability. The levy you put forward should include a document that, at a minimum, covers the areas we addressed. Without it, there is no clear way to communicate to voters how the funds will be used and monitored. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Ms. Klein. Sorry, I missed number 4 in your original. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5, but I missed 4. What was 4?
Hold workshops? Is that
Live
with the budget for a year?
That was number 3.
Okay, number 4. Is that the one you want?
Yeah.
Hold workshops designed to help voters understand the county's budget. Informed voters are more likely to support the board rather than fight it.
Got it. Thank you.
Next up, Michelle Martin.
Good evening, commissioners. and our budget committee. Really appreciate everybody here. I am Michelle Martin, and I live outside the city limits. What I would like to say is thank you to all of you and the sheriff and everyone who participated in those workshops during that levy. Watched all of them. You guys were amazing, and really appreciated your time and effort and everything that you did. Especially Keena, I am just thrilled to have you on board with this group here because you are a lifesaver. But what I like to say, just listening to what happened between Commissioner Alcorn and Sheriff John, was that you received an email from a deputy's wife. And was that an email that was sent to Commissioner, or was it a private email?
It was a text message.
A text message,
Yeah.
okay. So what I would suggest in the future is, if I voted you in to speak to our sheriff, I did not vote Ted Fitzgerald in to do any of that sort of stuff. So if there's a problem that you see that comes before you, I would just say go over and talk to him yourself. He's easy to talk with. You are easy to talk to. And I just hope that all this can be worked out, and we have an amazing team, and we have an amazing law enforcement. And I can see that you're all struggling to work together, but I stand behind you all.
Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, and I wanted to congratulate our new commissioner in January.
Thank you. Dave Barnes.
Dave Barnes. Let me start with the idea to fund two positions out of opioid money. There's not enough opioid money every year to fund two positions, unless you're paying them $40,000 a year. We get about the money that we have in there right now. If it's at $500,000, it's because people have paid forward. We will get approximately $150,000 a year, less than that, for the next 20 years, the next 18 years, till the end, 2038, till the end of the settlement. So at $140,000 a year, that's not going to fund a CRO and an SRO. You can have one but not the other. I just don't see how you fund it unless you're borrowing money out of the future, and then you have to cut the position sometime in the future.
Yeah, Dave, the idea is to fund that for 2 years. And if we don't, the idea is to fund both positions for 2 years. We have enough money to do that.
Yes, right now you do, but
We
after
do.
2 years.
And in 2 years, if we haven't found a funding solution,
Right.
then we're going to lose a lot. We may not even have public safety, Dave.
I understand that.
So if we can hang on to if we can hang on to two guys for 2 years, and we can use that money that's sitting there not being used, that's the idea behind it.
I completely understand that. I'm looking at this I'm on the outside now, so I look from the outside, looking back in again. And, what we're, for all the talk about going into the levy about funding the sheriff, what I'm hearing here is we're going to defund law enforcement. That's what, it's what it sounds like to me. If you're cutting positions, you're defunding law enforcement.
We're adding positions. I'm trying to add positions. I'm trying to hang on to deputies. I'm not trying to defund law enforcement. I have never and would never defund law enforcement. Everything I've done here, all my time, the commitment I've had, and to say that I want to defund law enforcement, Dave, no.
People on the outside, that's what it looks like. I'm just telling you, okay? Lastly, I agree with what the sheriff had said earlier about, I've watched what's happened in this county over the last 18 months, and I've watched how all of the power has been taken away from different departments, different offices, and is starting to become consolidated in this panel up here. And, now it's the sheriff's department that you're going after and telling him how, I listen to it and I agree with him, you're trying to tell him how to run his department, how to staff his department. I've listened to everything. I hear a lot of stuff. People still talk to me. As Michelle said, I've sat in the room and 4 times since this meeting started, I've listened to Mr. Fitzgerald disrespect people who've put in time and effort into this county, only to come back and be disrespected by him. That's what shoots you in the foot. That's what gets your levy shot down. Is you have to earn the trust and respect of the people. And by having someone who speaks for you being disrespectful on a regular basis, I mean, you have CAF just pulled out of the fair of making money being at the fair as a fundraiser because of that. Okay, you had Master Gardeners now looking to build a greenhouse that they wanted to put on the fairgrounds. They're looking to build that in a parking lot down the street here because they don't want to deal with the county anymore. You've gone through a whole fair board. They've all quit. Maybe it's time to think about, open your eyes and see what the image that you guys are presenting and your words are presenting to the people. And, that might help you go further. Because right now you're looking like you're leading from top down and like you're a bunch of power-hungry people that are just looking to take it all over. So, if you want the trust of the people, you have to earn it. And what's happening around here isn't earning it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next up is Stacy.
First of all, this isn't about me or my title, but I want to make it very clear that the communications division of the sheriff's office is vital for their efficiency. I am the lieutenant. I'm the one who runs dispatch. I have a sergeant below me. I would like it known that we do more than answer phone calls. My job requires me to do more than answer phone calls, so that's pretty offensive. And you say you support public safety, but you just presented a budget that cuts my position and my sergeant's position and adding others that we probably wouldn't be able to apply for. So I just want that very clearly known by the public that my job does matter and I help all divisions in the sheriff's office.
Patrick?
Yes, thank you. Through the process of campaigning, I've been able to do a lot of networking and meet a lot of great people that have a lot of great ideas that come from areas outside of this county. One thing that came across my plate, and it's extremely encouraging, and I'm going to hold a presentation with this lady, hopefully at one of the July BOC meetings. It's called the Apache and Navajo County Conveyance Act of 2023. Currently, there are 12 counties along the west that have adopted this Conveyance Act. And what the Conveyance Act is it's a bill that has been passed through the House, first in Arizona, that allows the counties to manage and use the resources that are in the county that are of federal lands. So essentially, we can then go through signing an ordinance. We can just sign an ordinance through health and safety for the county, and it allows us to create licenses, fees, and permits through this ordinance for, say, South Coast Lumber to go out and harvest the timber on federal property in the county where we can collect yield off of what is logged and managed. And it would be something that the county manages. So not only would we be able to go in and log on this land, we could develop this land for recreation, and we can also develop this land for infrastructure. All through an ordinance, nothing that has to be passed in the state of Oregon. There are several other counties in Oregon right now that are looking into this and looking to adopt this fairly soon, and again, very easily just through an ordinance. But come July, come after all of this budget meetings, this lady who's helping lead the charge has volunteered to come down and present with me formally how it works, and she has the whole roadmap for us to be able to follow as a county to adopt this. This could be very extremely lucrative for our county. So that's what I wanted to mention. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. That was the last public comment. You guys want to take a break or you want to keep going? I'm good either way.
I'm good.
All right, back to the discussion.
Okay. Well,
If you're looking for a recommendation from the budget committee, how would you frame that? Based on what I've heard today, I can't imagine how you would frame it.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult.
well, I'd still like to try to figure out how to get, I mean, and it's gonna be in one of these departments, how to move 144 back into the jail to ensure that we have 35 beds there. You know, that's supporting our entire law enforcement infrastructure.
All the other issues aside, I think that, I mean, for the people of Curry County and all the agencies that bring people forward to be prosecuted, I think a 35-bed jail is probably the most important thing that you can look at right now. And if there was money to be taken from anywhere to augment something, I would think that would be, as far as on the public safety side, I would think that would be the place where it would need to be focused.
How many in jail right now, Jeremy?
I have to look at,
Guess, off the top of your,
just because of Senate Bill 48.
just because of what?
Senate Bill 48.
Okay.
So we do currently have the small contingency of $79,991 available if the committee wanted to use that money.
What does 30 beds look like? Is that,
Well, no,
is
I mean,
35 a number that,
it's just, you know, from what I gather and what the sheriff was mentioning, once you do the reduction, in our circumstance, believe we were grandfathered in with the current beds. So as soon as we reduce them, we cannot get them back,
oh, okay.
right? So,
Wow.
until we build a facility that meets current standards.
Gotcha.
I think he mentioned that he was gonna make it work for 35 beds.
He said he thought he
We're
could.
not gonna do a jail bed reduction. I've already said that. I mentioned it earlier.
Okay.
We're gonna maintain
They're
it
gonna,
within our parameters as we are. Because we have restrictions from Senate Bill 48, and we do have a jail matrix that we can use. But taking it down from 35 to 20, it's not gonna save much hardly at all anyway. So I'd rather leave it the way it is and work our best that we can to save money.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
If you put the materials and services back up to where they were, like in the food budget and a couple of others, that would make that more doable.
So then if we did a $50,000 transfer of those contingency funds, leaving then 29,991, then that would replace what was removed from that amount.
That just makes that more doable. It leaves some error for, look at historically, the sheriff's office, and I'm just throwing this out there, the sheriff's office historically has come in under budget. We don't throw the money that's allocated to the sheriff's office away. But without sitting down and going pencil by pencil, if you put the materials and services back, that gives the staff the ability to not have to worry about how many meals are being kept. I mean, not that they don't pay attention to how many meals, but, you know, we're gonna pinch a penny. We're gonna step over a dime or step over $1 to pick up a dime. Does that make sense? So, yeah.
When we talked about this earlier, it was a real waste of money for the amount of money that you're able to feed people at the jail, you can't get a better deal than that.
No, we can't.
Okay. And in essence, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain, but with that, we could essentially budget what we currently have in there with the expectation that if you were running at capacity for an extreme amount of time, we could do a supplemental to move that money out of contingency over to cover those costs.
Yes, as long as, yes,
Okay.
you can do that.
Yeah.
If we're over 10% over budget, then you have to do a supplemental, and if we're not, then.
Right, then we're good. Yeah, okay.
But, yeah. And if you wanted to add one staff person back to keep that inmate or adult in custody to CO ratio a little better, that even adds more of a safety factor in the jail.
Okay.
So it throws a whole nother element into it, but like I said, when you're talking, 2 people on duty and 35, anywhere from 21 to 35, that a lot of them have behavioral problems and mental health issues that, I'm gonna be honest, we have a guy that regularly smears crap all over his cell, and the guy's got to go in and extract them. They have to deal with them. It's just, so if you put the staff back, if you're going to not affect the jail, my personal recommendation would be to restore the jail, leave the material. I would rather leave the materials and services there, maybe put 10 more thousand in the food line item so that they're not quite worried about that, and put the staff back, because that's where the safety part comes in the jail.
So if you look at what I presented of Commissioner Alcorn's suggestions, and based on staffing that we have in the jail and his projection, you'll see that the regular salary is actually $90,000 more than what was in the sheriff's department's last submitted budget.
So there's no cuttings.
I had to add more money to their numbers to balance it out. To pay for the staff that
Well,
was listed.
like I said, it's only 144
Yeah,
less than
correct, last year. Correct.
which looks like it's all M&S. Well, no, there's some. Oh, it came out from,
IGS.
yeah,
Yeah.
workers' comp. There's some others. Okay.
So using this sheet that we were presented last time with the 3 options, remember that one?
Mhm.
Okay.
Last time we used number 2,
Right.
but we made the adjustment to the DA, the assessor, treasurer, I believe, I
Clerk.
can't remember, and clerk. I feel like there was something else, but those are the adjustments that we made. And then,
And are reflected in the new sheet.
with the exception of the ones that we made the current changes, the sheriff's department ones are the ones that are changed on there.
Our revenue, our resources, I should say, excuse me, are actually higher.
Correct. And the revenues or the resources are higher because of the marijuana money going into those funds. The projected FY '25 amount and the 445,000 rollover amount.
Is that in this 1446, the 450?
Yes, that is the rollover portion anticipated, and then you'll see the 150,000, which is above, is the projection.
I do hate to,
One quick, I just want to
okay.
ask, so in total, in total countywide, with all of the cuts, in their sum, it's close to 36 countywide. 14.5 of which would be in the sheriff's department, it sounds like. My, contingent on what the funding looks like today. So just to put it in perspective, this is a countywide, as was mentioned before, countywide effort, not just one singular department asking to be making sacrifices.
So I know one thing that I did hear when I heard the public comments was that we would be losing the ability to run dispatch if we made the cuts that were proposed. Is there an alternative to us running dispatch? I mean, the reality is that we actually are we're in a situation where there's a real funding shortfall and it's long term. So to be told absolutely not, that's not a way to engage with a problem. So are there any other ways that we could go with that? I don't know.
Well, I think the point you're making is a good one in terms of, we're being told in this scenario that, as we asked in the past, and I think this is one of the big things that Dan was asking for multiple times, like, what does each thing mean? What does it mean for service? What does it mean for, what the public can expect to receive? And in this scenario, it's being said, right, essentially that we won't function. So, I mean, if that's the case, right, then the only area we have to pull is from Civil Crim Patrol to pull in from the general fund contribution over to dispatch to cover that need, as far as I can see. Right, so we'd have to essentially reallocate one or two of those positions from Civil Crim Patrol into dispatch, removing them from that other area.
Correct.
So, I mean, to your point, I mean, we asked what each thing would mean, and I think we got an answer on what that would mean. And in the future, do we have to look at those, what it looks like alternative-wise? Yeah. I mean, in the future, we'll look at, what does it look like without an additional 1.2 million? What kind of agreements do we have to establish with other partners to cover some of these things? Certainly, right? And I think, if nothing else, the 1.2 gives us, we have a lot of work ahead of us to get prepared for that in the 25, 26, right? I mean, to work those partnerships out and get them all solidified by what we would consider January if there was no funding solution.
Well, and that's the thing, as we talk about this budget, it's this year's budget, but we have to also be looking forward. It's very important to look forward because, I mean, I supported the use of the road funds when I was on the budget committee, sure, but we had a lot more road funds. Absolutely. And I was being told at the time that we were going to be going out for funding solutions, but we didn't. Nobody did. Nobody did that. So here we are today. And so as we look at this budget, just in the back of your mind, have that forward vision.
Well, I mean, I take ownership as well. I mean, last year, this group minus Dan approved the largest transfer of road funds that we've ever made. An enormous amount. So, I mean, we've made those. No one's immune from making those deals. So, not that it's a terrible thing, but we're at a point where we have to address that.
So, Keena, the difference with the sheriff's department then for the option 2 with those adjustments versus what we presented tonight is how much? What's the difference? Total.
Let me calculate that.
Keena must step on it real quick.
Sorry.
The youngest guy here almost.
Sorry, I have to go back to my book. We've got lots of scenarios back and forth lately.
Right.
$577,000.
577?
Nope.
577?
$577,000. And again, that is made up of the marijuana tax projections for FY '25, the $445,000 of rollover funds, and just kind of moving some stuff around.
Okay, you're not saying additional, that's what the actual number is.
Yes, that's the difference between,
Okay.
Of-
So from when we left, the 394 is now 577.
correct. Oh, you're looking at it a different way than me. You're talking about deficit. You're thinking
Yes.
deficit? It's not a deficit anymore. I balance the funds across the board based on Commissioner Alcorn's.
No, based on I have to look at this initially as what we approved the other night. I'm just trying to get my arms
Yes.
around that.
So the
Sorry.
transfer to, or the general fund use to the sheriff's department is $3,805,135 in this projection. Before, it was $3,227,300.
So the 394 is based upon 3,227,000?
Is that just because you took the 500 out?
Correct.
And then taken it from the general fund? So
Correct.
the number's essentially the same that we had before,
It's
but
just
now
going
it's
through different directions.
reallocated and correctly, we can see now correctly what's coming out of the general fund rather than.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So the money still is going there, that was identified to go there, it's just going there now through a general fund tag, not through a special reserve fund tag.
So it changes, basically, we're here because the ask from the general fund has now changed technically, even though the numbers are the same, the ask is now changed, and so we need to approve that same ask out of the general fund rather than the approval that we had before, which
So-
was out of,
Well,
less out of the general fund.
we originally came here because the budget that was given is different than what this committee approved. So this committee approved reducing it by the $394,000. And what they gave us was not that. And that's how we reconvened, because the numbers that came across were different. So then that led us into more.
We established that though without the changes he made over the weekend. The sheriff's order there. So without the changes he made, that, so it was 40, we were 55 off, right? We were only 50, because he had put 500 in, which he didn't have. He had 445.
He actually increased it and another 130. Okay.
I thought when we left, we had one bad number, and that was 445 versus 500. He had put 500 in, which that was a one-time deal, not the whole thing, but
Yeah,
we were off. We walked out of this room, we walked out not knowing we were $55,000
Correct.
off. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay. So that's where I have to start at.
Okay,
Okay, so I can look at this. So again, that, we came up to that was 439? 440,000.
yeah.
Okay, so we actually, the sheriff was at a $440,000 deficit.
Correct.
Okay. Based on the expenses that he had outlined in his budget.
Correct.
Okay. So now, what were the expenses he had in his budget, and now what are the expenses he has in his budget? Are those, that's what we need to.
The expenses that were in the budget before and what are now, the now is based on Commissioner Alcorn's suggestions.
Right, and how much difference is that? That's what we're talking about here, right?
So the difference would essentially be,
And that's a lot to ask. Real
no, you're good, you're good. So the difference essentially would be, I'm trying to figure out how to do the math best to come up with that number. So the difference in communication, so can we do it line item by line item? That might be easier for me to.
I kind of
get
did
them.
it here.
Okay.
Mostly all labor, right?
It's all, yes. So it's all related to labor or salary fringe.
And just so the public that's watching can keep up with what we're doing.
Yes.
What are you comparing right now?
What I am comparing is the budget documents for the sheriff's department that we originally had when we left here on whatever date it was, the last time we met, compared to what we have currently in front of us. So the difference that we have there, let me go through.
I'm going to write old and I'm going to write new.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we start with criminal and civil. Out of my packet. So the difference that we are submitting in the packet is a reduction in salary by $150,000. Reduction in health care by about $25,000. And a difference in the indirect allocation. Might help if I get the right page. By $70,000.
70? 70 less
Yes,
because of number of people?
yes.
Okay.
That was civil crime patrol?
Yes.
Okay.
So then when we're looking at the jail,
What was that number, Jay?
so the jail, we had a reduction of $90,000. Actually, sorry, the jail, we had an addition of $90,000 to salary.
Okay.
And that is because of the numbers that, when I recalculated the jail's numbers, based on that, it came up to a $90,000 difference. A health insurance increase of $40,000. A PERS increase, because when salary goes up, PERS and all the fringe goes up. So a PERS increase of about $70,000. And an increase, actually, a $5,000 decrease in personnel services, the administrative portion of it. Communications.
And there's no allocation for that jail? No admin allocation there?
That is, that $5,000
Well, that is the
is
admin.
yeah.
So we're kind of keeping track of this. So we got 170, we got 240 for criminal and civil, right? Decrease,
Yep.
okay.
And then we have communication.
Wait, and here we've got 130, 200, 195 plus increase on the jail.
I got 195 increase on jail.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I got.
Get that? Okay, so we're 240 civil criminal minus and 195 plus on the jail, okay?
Okay. So then in communications, we have a $158,000 decrease in salary, sorry. We have a $30,000 decrease in health insurance. And we have an $11,000 decrease in PERS. And a $30,000 decrease in personnel services.
Come on, Ted, do some math here, help me, will you?
I'm working on it.
I went to BHHS.
I'm lost without my 10 key over here.
I got a minus 249.
Okay. I did too, okay.
So the only other changes that we did were the opioid account and the special projects. Those are the other changes. Special projects, again, we reduced the carry forward, allocated or actually documented, actual reserve contingency for like the canine sonar, which I'll look into. And then the general general contingency. And then taking that marijuana tax and moving that over to the general fund, non-departmental, for allocation out.
Back to the sheriff.
Yes.
But his actual, so net, is that correct?
Yes.
I got a net negative 294.
Okay. So that's the answer.
Good job. Sorry, I think of it a different direction.
That's what you've been asking for. It's 294 more than what we left the other day. Not counting your Saturday, move it back and
Yeah,
forth.
just as what we left on.
So you're saying a 294 additional cut?
No.
Yeah.
Cut?
294 additional needed.
Right, but, and again, part of that's allocation of admin. So you got 70, 30, 100 minus 5, you got 95,000 of that is this allocation. So really, it's a couple $100,000,
Is that in addition to what they were?
in addition to the 394. If I'm looking at it right.
Is that right? In addition to the 394? Or was that offset by the opioid money and marijuana funds?
There's no offsets right now. This is this expense. That's what his, right?
Yeah.
Everything's balanced now, you said.
Yes, everything's balanced now.
But were there additional resources added in to assist the balance? That's where I'm a
Oh,
little
I see what you're
confused.
saying.
Right, so I think there was opioid money that was added in to offset.
Right, which increased, which took care of the, oh, yeah.
No. So the opioid money is its own individual fund, so it wasn't added into what I gave you.
It was not added into here.
It has its own sheet.
Okay.
So it's not added into the jail, it's not added into Crim Civ Patrol, and it's not added into communications.
Can't be.
It's its own individual money.
Got it, okay. So. So then what we're looking at is 200,000-ish plus the 394? Is that how that?
Already cut the 394.
I don't see it in addition to.
No, well, I see 200 more, right? 200 more cut.
So we balanced ours when we left. Ours balanced.
Right.
Ours
Well-
balanced when we left.
Well,
So
we walked out.
Oh, from where they presented?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from what they presented, yes. Yes.
What he's been asking is, what's the difference, right?
Yes.
So when you walked out of.
Excuse me, sheet that was submitted, that wouldn't balance to the budget that they provided.
Okay.
So that's why that money was added back in.
So, just so I'm getting this, so Commissioner, Chairman Alcorn, your solution was to, we have an additional 200,000, but you came up with a way to restructure to where we're actually not losing more people through this. We're actually able to maintain more people, even though we have an additional 200,000 that we need to come up with from the Sheriff's Department?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're adding.
That was the thing we were up against. We now have a bigger
Correct.
ask. The Sheriff's Department now has to make bigger cuts. You were saying, this
So
is your solution.
how do we save, right, how do we save more people? How do we save more jobs? How do we keep those deputies here? That's what I was looking at, correct. That was the intent behind what I was proposing, along with prioritizing public safety and being as efficient as we can possibly be with making the cuts that we're making. Correct.
But I'm gonna go back, so we got the jail thing figured out, but now we are faced with, being told that we can't, the dispatch won't be doable, right? So if we're going to replace one or more of those positions back in dispatch, then we have to figure out where those are coming from to reallocate them from one budget to the other. Is what I'm gathering right now.
Well, I can tell you from living with dispatch every day, we've got to have good dispatch.
Or you could reorganize dispatch and work with Brookings and do a different kind of partnership. Right now, as I understand it, they back each other up.
Yeah.
There's probably a different way of looking at that, but it would take,
It would take time
yeah.
to even explore that, right? So, but for what we have in front of us, because this will be, this is adopted, will be July 1, right? So,
We're almost out of time.
yeah. So, I mean, if we're gonna pull from anywhere to put back in dispatch, the only place I see we can pull is the other biggest department, which would be Civil Crim Patrol. Pull the adequate amount, I guess it would be the 195, no, sorry, the 249 from communications, from Civil Crim Patrol, to make up the difference in communications, to have them functioning as they stated. And then, I'm just trying to,
That's the only place to pull from.
I'm just trying to do like as much
No, I looked at that, Jay. It's the only place to pull from.
off the cuff math here.
Or, you point out I wasn't here last year. And you point out you did the biggest road fund allocation last year. We could add, a few months to that idea I had of interest. Take care of that.
Yeah, the only, so, you know, obviously I thought about that a lot after you said it and everything. I guess my only, just being very transparent, my only concern is those are less dollars next year.
They are.
And so, like, that gamble is, I don't know if I'm comfortable. We're gambling 6 months of that as it is on the hopes that there may be, you know, that the mountain that's never been summited will be summited. I don't know how much more I feel comfortable going.
On that note, I mean, from looking at the last 50 years of our county employees, we are already set as it is, as the adopted budget last time, going to be at our record low for 50 years.
Record low
Significantly.
of,
If we're cutting 36 employees, then it puts us under 100 for the first time, and based on the sheet that you showed us. Am I incorrect on that?
yeah, so, but countywide,
Yeah.
not in any one particular department. So,
Well, I'm just referencing that we're jumping off a cliff already. And so while Dan was saying, and I get it, like we can't keep pilfering from the road funds. However, we went from 3.9 to just interest, which I get. I mean, I understand, but I guess, I mean, from a different perspective, I understand that we have to stop the bleeding. We have to. Do we cut off both of our legs in order to stop the bleeding, or do we try a tourniquet for a year, and then, you know, if we lose it, then we lose it. But you know, if we just completely decimate another 200,000, it just feels like we are jumping off a cliff and we're headed that direction. But you know, from my perspective, I am new at this as well.
We've already decimated other departments,
Yeah.
the clerk's department, I mean, we've really,
The
yeah.
lowest we'll ever be
Well, I would-
in 50 years of employees.
I would say that, some of the other departments are gonna be so the historic low that I have for the last 15 years in sheriff is 36.
Yeah.
This is above that, right? But I don't know that the clerk's ever been to 3. Just a second. So we have other departments that are at, like, beyond historic lows. Like, so, you know, just to put it in perspective, these staffing ratios aren't new territory in our public safety. It is really extremely painful, right? I mean, it's an incredible amount of service being cut. But I think the point is when you go to historic lows, a lot of the historic lows are being felt in
Other departments.
across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shelley, go ahead.
Dan, can you share your microphone?
Yeah, she needs a mic. Thank you, Dan.
So since I wasn't here on that Friday, I wasn't aware of the options that were given and didn't get a chance to speak to that. But apparently, it looks like my staffing levels are going from 4 FTEs down to 2 for all 3 of my divisions.
It was the 3.
Including her. 3 including her. 3 FTEs total.
But I think the option 2 that you were talking about shows 2 FTEs, not 3.
We added, correct.
Okay,
There was one was added in.
okay. I didn't have that information, so.
It was.
Right the last.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it
right.
was the last
It was at the
round.
end, one was added to yours, one was added to DA, one was in, was it assessor? Yeah.
Okay.
How many am I at now?
7.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things as well, that I would have thrown out there had I been given these options, but there are some ORSs that states that the county board shall furnish the clerk with whatever personnel, equipment, or anything else that is needed to perform the duties of elections. And that you can also borrow from the road fund to fund the clerk elections. And then there's the other statute that the county can deem a fiscal emergency and call the governor in to help with the deficit for elections. But if that happens, they're going to look at the books first.
Well, and I think these were things we were asking of you when we asked for 41%, what it looked like at 41%. And I don't think we're able to get that information.
And even at 3, I'm not going to be able to get the job done. If I had a trained staff, if I had another me, because I've lost, 40 years of experience, my whole staff is new. And you don't get to just tell somebody you don't get to vote. Or no, I'm not going to put that on the ballot.
I don't want to be unfair to Kylie. You want to step up?
I also wasn't here. I had sick family, but I know I'm not going to change anyone's mind. You guys have made a motion, but I wanted to know what county you were referring to, Jay.
Jefferson.
Okay, so Jefferson, actually, I contacted all of our light counties. Jefferson actually is only assessment, and they have 8 FTEs. Their tax bills and tax collection goes through the finance department. So when you were saying that you would, litigate if Department of Revenue stepped in, to kind of go to what John was saying about like working on the same team, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt that that I took it wrong. But if I'm in contact with Department of Revenue, which I was last week, saying they made a motion, I wasn't even aware they made a motion to take these 2 employees away. I'm going to be a team player. I'm going to do what I can do with the staffing I have, but I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say, I can't do it. This is what I'm capable of. This is what I'm not capable of. And to hear you say that you would litigate against that and we'll be fine, I wish that you would come and talk to me and come see what the office does and work with me in regards to what we can and can't do, not just, well, they have 7. Well, they don't have 7. They have 8 and they only do assessment. That was kind of my 2 cents there. Did I take that the wrong way?
No.
No. So you would say you can do the work?
No, our job. No, Kylie. I'm trying to figure out the best route for our budget.
I understand. And I said, and pardon my language, I've never half-assed anything. I'm going to go in this and do the best I can with the staff I have. But if we can't do it and I'm meeting with Department of Revenue and they're saying, you're missing these deadlines, you're not capable of handling this, and they decide that they do want to come in, look at the books, see how they can fund us, and you were on the record saying, well, we can litigate against that. But that's...
Actually, we'd be meeting with them
Okay.
first, so there's a process, and if that happens, then we'll handle it, but there's no litigation involved. They're required to meet with the county commissioners and make a plan, which would be, the reality is that everybody needs to understand, there's no money. That's what we've been saying. Now, if it was up to me, I'd fund a department that makes us money. I would fully fund that department. I think anything else is not smart. That's what I also would fund a department that runs the commerce of our county, the clerk's department. I would fund that. I think that's foolish. However, the focus here seems to be on some other things, and I've tried to communicate that, and you guys have communicated it as well. The reality is that the position that was taken with the levy, I think, and I said it then, was a mistake. It should not have been specifically a law levy, because you can clearly see that many other these are integral departments in this county. They are underfunded long-term, and that needs to be addressed. But it needs to be addressed by communicating the truth to the voters in a way that they can understand it.
And to your point, yeah, it would have been great. Maybe you could have corrected me. I may have been using last year's numbers, not this year's numbers of 7.
Well, and that they just solely focus on assessment. I would love to fully focus on assessment.
Sure.
But
No, I
tax has been
understand.
dropped with us, and that's what we have. I'm not trying to go backwards, but I just felt like that was not a very team playery when I said, I prepared my budget and I said, this is what I'm willing to do. This is what I think we can do with and without. And anyway.
And so I feel like when you presented the budget you could do, that's the one that we approved.
No, I said 1. I'm now down 2. I said I could probably live without one of the positions, but now what was approved was 2, correct? Because I'm at 9 and now I'm at 7.
Correct.
Okay, so I lost 2 people. That's all. I just wish I could have.
One unfilled, right?
It's an appraiser, but yeah, it's unfilled, but it's an
Okay.
appraiser. Right now I have 2 unfilled appraisers. I have just lost one 31st was his last day, Johnny. He's gone, and then I had an unfilled one.
Okay.
Can I just add one more?
Yeah.
And I too realize we're out of money, but I guess the hardest thing to take is that you keep talking about how the law levy failed. But you're cutting mandated services before you're cutting non-mandated services. And it seems like you should start with the non-mandated, fund your mandated first, and then whatever we can fund that's non-mandated, you go from there. And the people spoke. I'm sorry. I'm all for patrol, the sheriff patrol isn't mandated. Sorry, I think it needs to go.
Okay. Well,
Anybody need a break?
the only, well,
I mean,
hold
I'm
on.
good, but
The only money that would be available, the only money that would be available in patrol in terms of non-mandated is the transfer in from general fund of 700,000. And I understand Shelley's argument, 100%. We have mandated obligations. So, I don't know, maybe we do reevaluate that, I don't know. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room.
I do just want to point out that both of those two made, those are valid points, and those are, that we do have responsibilities to the state that we need to honor, and those are, the ability to vote and the ability to sell your property and keep record of all the important things that happen in this county are integral. And then the assessor's office is a thing that's what brings money in, and they are both mandated, and they're both really essential services, and it does seem that they're getting short shrift when compared to, to the whole picture.
Well, yeah. Thoughts?
bit of a mess, isn't it? Yep. There's no good decision here. Like I said earlier, man, I don't even want to talk about any of this. I don't. But we have to. We have to. You accept the responsibility of being a leader, you put yourself at the point of friction, and here we are. So, and you have to say unpleasant things, and you have to say things that, this is business.
Can we talk one more time about the with the marijuana fund. And so what we're doing, how much we're putting aside?
We're not putting any aside.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm sorry, of what's coming in this year, we're allocating what our.
All of that goes
All
to
of
the
it.
sheriff's
Okay,
office.
all right.
And it's one of those things like pill funds, you sort of have to estimate it going forward and make your best guess, and then if it comes up short, then you'll have to come back and do a supplemental and figure out something. And if it doesn't, then you have to do something about that.
Try to be conservative, yeah.
I think it's the opioid fund that has already accumulated some years, and that won't be replenished at the same rate going forward.
Right.
Correct. Correct, but we have enough now to be sustainable for a couple of years if we were to fund those positions. And it would be sustainable for a couple of years and still have enough money to provide the adequate training to make those positions, impactful to the community.
So one position in the assessor's office, one position in the clerk's office. The only current non-mandated fund area we have access to move would be in civil crim, which would reduce that by.
I'll get you a number right now. So adding one person back to the clerk's office would be about a $95,000 amount, that salary fringe. Plus 23,148 of indirect if we're gonna do that. So that'd be a total of, let's say, $120,000.
What position is that, Kina? That seems high.
That is, that's the next highest individual on your, I don't wanna use a name.
Like a deputy clerk 2, 1?
We only have, so when we were talking today, I was using payroll and positions in the payroll system, and we only have one deputy clerk 2, and then 3 others that are deputy clerk 1. So this would just be removing the lowest paid.
That is incorrect, because I have 2 and 2.
So that's something we'll have to talk about afterwards. But salary-wise, it's pretty comparable. Yeah. And that's with fringe and everything. And then appraiser. Where did I have that one? I don't have the fastest Wi-Fi in here, let me tell you. Sorry. I believe it's 60%. And 141,000 for the other one. For a total of 261.
261?
Correct.
261 plus the potential 294 of communications. Just so we have something we're looking at here. 294 plus 261 is 555, which would bring sheriff or civil crime patrol to basically 1.5 ish, 1.5 and some thousands.
That's it, that's it.
Yeah, take that. So
That's how much they have, right?
that's would be the 1,518,000 would be what's left in civil crim patrol.
Sheriff back there.
Yeah, he's still here.
So, Sheriff, and maybe Phil, you might be able to ask or answer this as well. So the FTE count that you provided was, Dan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, never mind.
3, 4, 5, 6 communication deputies, a sergeant, and a lieutenant, and then you two were just a fraction of those. So the salary came out to 577, 357.
Say that again on the communications?
Communications.
How many
So
people?
six communication deputies and then a sergeant and a lieutenant.
Right.
So with that 8, is that functionable? Okay. I'm gonna do the math then really quickly to see how we can.
If nobody takes any time off.
That covers, that's functionable. They're functioning and we ask those questions of their manager and they can function at that number.
You gotta get up, Dave.
No. 6:37, not too bad.
Sorry, guys, working as fast as I can. Yeah, so we could do it for $250,000, and we would have to add $250,000 to bring back status quo in dispatch.
So it's not, so it's 261.
Yep.
261 plus 250,
Yeah.
so 511.
After all of our last rounds, what did we have for contingency at the end?
76.
76.
Let me give you an exact number here. Oh, sorry, 79. 79,991.
May not be the year to start our rainy day fund. Because it's raining.
That would put civil crim patrol at a total budget of 1562939.
Is that number again?
1562939.
If bottom line, or is that
That would be total resources.
needed? Okay.
No, that would be what you would have to spend. If we took the 250 out for dispatch and 261 to make clerk and assessor.
So it's the bottom line number.
That would be the bottom line
Balance
operational number.
Is that even taking the 294 out you're
So-
talking about?
So then positionally, what is that?
I was just gonna say that. So, when I'm looking at, these are just salary numbers, what I'm looking at here. I have just divided up, we've got the sheriff, the captain, lieutenants, and sergeants, that's one division, is 418,000, and then the patrol, and this is based on your budget. 536,000 is the 5 deputies and civil and executive assistant.
So what's that total?
That's 954. So
So 954.
that's half. You're either cutting all patrol or all upper management.
Well,
I mean, number-wise, that's what it's looking like.
Well, no, their total resources would be 1562939, right? So,
But if you were to cut,
oh, I see. I see the total staff is 157299894.
yes. Yes.
Proposed.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Got it. So, yeah, I understand.
Down from 2.07940.
Yeah.
The last one so that's over $500,000 we have to cut, I think. More.
If we went this route, but I mean, I'm just. Yeah.
This route would minimally staff the mandated positions, mandated departments. But it would get the job done.
It would minimally staff our mandated.
Yeah, right.
Just a question, does that change, the only changes on CrimSIV would need to occur in personnel? Correct, okay. Everything else wouldn't change
It'd be personnel and your administrative.
in administrative, okay.
And
So,
any M&S that you decided.
It was associated.
Wait.
So the only other thing it would maybe change is your assigned vehicles.
yeah.
Maybe.
And I did have.
And I don't know.
$7,000 roughly, I mean, that's the average.
That's the only thing that I can think of.
77, I mean, it's like, I don't know, I don't remember the numbers, but yeah, it might add, only thing is you're gonna have less people driving more miles than what they were driving, so yeah.
But what we're talking about right now is cutting patrol, right?
Yes.
That's essentially what.
That's exactly what it would be.
We're talking about cutting CrimSIV. You can
Well, criminal.
control CrimSIV however the sheriff wants to do that. So let me ask you this, does that number include the opioid money?
No, the opioid money's a different,
That stands alone, Phil.
that's all by
Okay,
itself.
So what I'm asking, well, I guess so that's not included in the total number of FTE anywhere?
No, that
So if
completely
those
stands
positions
alone.
were created, then that money would be transferred or they would be paid out of that
They'd be
other
paid out of the
fund or
opioid.
however, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It's essentially a restricted fund, so they would have to be,
Yeah, I 100%
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, they would be,
But there's
paid out of there.
550,000 available there.
Right, so, I mean, so I totally understand that. I was just wanting to make sure that that number isn't included there, or it was or
No.
wasn't included in the number of FTEs, so.
No.
Because I'm gonna be honest, the SRO position is pretty simple. I mean, there's lots of programs where if we were to put somebody in an SRO position that you're gonna be going to the schools, there's actually training specifically for SRO deputies, and then there's also whether you use DARE or some other program that's an evidence-based program for reporting requirements. Your CRO, there's no evidence-based program out there to say how him giving somebody a ticket for whatever or going and talking to them helps the opioid problem.
There-
Well, there's no program that I'm aware of off the top of my head right now that's simple and easy to implement. The SRO position, simple, well, doable, easy. The CRO, yeah, whatever, but it looks like 4 or 5 positions, correct? Rough math.
3.
Not including, and then if positions are funded using opioid funds,
That's
maybe
somewhere else.
that's somewhere else, and maybe somebody stays or comes back to work or something else.
Right.
And that's one thing,
So,
I know it doesn't have anything to do with this conversation but we can't even post for any open positions until all the laid off positions are rehired or given the opportunity to come back,
Correct. Yeah.
so.
So is it a layoff or is it termination?
We have to per the CBA layoff.
So when does this, what date? Is this a
There's-
decision that has to be made right now, tonight? Or is this a decision that can be made with a little bit of thought, process? You guys have had thought and process to come up with the ideas that you've got, and they've been dropped here without that same thought and process. And the same thing with the budget board members, unless there's meetings that, whatever. So that's, I guess, so when I can't remember the publication dates and everything that we have.
So
to
as
know,
of
but-
today, we have missed our date.
Okay.
We, as of today, can no longer have our budget adoption meeting on the 20th because we've missed all publication dates for the county's newspapers.
So we'll be in violation.
No,
So
we'll
no,
have to
we
have a
have,
special
we'll
meeting.
have to have a special meeting and it will have to happen sometime after the 20th because in order for us to meet the publication dates. So, we are in a timeline that we're running literally up against every hour that we do this. I even reached out today to see if we could submit something later to a paper or whatever to get something to work. And, you know, we're up against the wall here, so.
And that has to be in one paper or all papers
It
or?
only has to be published in one, but, you know, small town papers, it takes,
And did you
a lot of
speak to
work.
Matt Hall?
They're a week out almost.
they're a week, yeah. So today's the deadline to make it for Friday. And it's not like I can just whip this all out and
Oh, yeah,
I have most of it done with the exception of these portions and obviously the budget message has to be wrote dependent on all this. So,
When are you expecting to make notifications of the layoffs?
so, the union's made aware of potential layoffs, and that was made 2 months ago.
Yeah.
We've provided them with seniority lists as they requested. This is quite a process for layoffs. It's a domino effect because of bumping rights and position changes, and we have 2 collective bargaining units that we have to work with across the county. It's not gonna happen July 1. It's going to be a process.
So the budget will take us through
So-
July a little bit.
Yes, it has to. We're gonna have to, what we adopt is gonna be ugly a little bit in July, but we have to. We have no option because we're so late into this game. That's why it's vital we get stuff done as quickly as possible because we'll literally be spending money we don't have.
Well, like I said, we're gonna need a little bit of time tomorrow morning by noon or something like that at least.
Yeah,
So,
whatever these guys want, yeah.
so
I mean, we have to go cut $500 and something thousand. Yeah, I need a couple of hours.
Is that gonna be cut from patrol, or is it?
well, civil crime patrol
Yeah.
in that area.
Are you
and then-
taking anything back from the DA like a position?
If we hadn't discussed it,
I think the DA, I think you funded him.
So in which plan are we talking about now? Are we talking about the one that the committee approved? Because there's a lot of plans floating around out there. The one that we approved, are we talking about taking more than we approved on that?
no, that's what the question was. You know, obviously in this one, we hadn't discussed that. We're basically going back to the square one. One thing I have, and I think Phil asked this in an earlier meeting, but how do we, what does it look like to fund all the accrual costs, payments to these staff?
Depends on the cuts.
We certainly understand that we have to have a projected idea, right?
That's really hard to decide, to
Without the
determine.
position roster.
Got it.
And another thing you need to take into consideration is that the longer we take to make these cuts, the more money it's gonna cost us, because July 1, there is a cost of living increase per the collective bargaining agreement, so all those vacation hours that are out there are gonna cost us more. It is a perfect nightmare that we're in.
In reference to the DA, how long has that open position been? How long have we been operating as we are right now? Do Does anybody know about that?
It's over a year.
Yeah.
Just hasn't been able to get anybody to apply.
But we added money so that we can actually attract an attorney who might work here. And I would say that the DA bringing that up at this point is not,
I was just
I know, I mean, my point is that the value that was assigned to the jail as a benefit, as a mandated service to the entire county is mirrored in the DA's role, which is also a mandated service. These are, and all the agencies use it, so,
It was a question I had.
I get it, yeah.
I didn't ask because we did fund it, and if it'd been that way for the last 3 years, that we had an open position, it wasn't filled, but we've been operating as that, then.
It's been quite a while. It's been at least over a year, but,
And what we did is when the group decided to fund it, we put a little bit more money in there, so somebody
make it
doesn't,
more attractive.
yeah, so somebody doesn't come in at step one if we can avoid it.
Gotcha.
Well, the three of us are gonna be here tomorrow. What about you three, if we take another day to make a decision?
what do you say, Dave?
I can make it work. And look, we're in this deep, you know?
Yeah,
We're in the
it's
trenches.
pretty deep.
So whatever, I'm here. We need more time than right.
Then
this
what
minute.
you should
We
probably
got-
do is, you don't have to adjourn, you could just like,
Recess.
Yeah?
yeah, recess it.
Oh, all right, so we don't have to notice it?
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know, does that work for you, Dan?
he's looking. We're gonna swim 5,000 yards tomorrow morning, so we can't do it in the morning. We swam 3 this morning
3,000?
Jacko?
in the pool.
I could do it later in the day.
I
I gotta be in Roseburg most of the day tomorrow, so I can get back here by, what time works for you?
I would prefer afternoon. Anytime afternoon works for me.
I can get back here at 3:30?
Or
3:30?
Yeah. 3:30 or 4.
How about if
Friday doesn't work for you. Oh, I guess you're swimming.
if I co-pilot, does that get you back here sooner?
No. Hold your hand.
Nick?
Yeah, he'll sleep while you're flying that yellow plane.
So is that what you guys want to do? Recess until tomorrow at 3:30 to process everything we're talking about?
Keena, does that make it?
I'm gonna be here regardless, so you just tell me when to show up. And what I can do is also, put together some numbers for Shelley and for, Tylee. I don't know why, I'm looking at you thinking, I know it's okay.
I have to have numbers by Wednesday at the latest for Kappa. They
Yeah.
are holding out for us. It's closed, we can't even submit it online anymore. They said just email it to us and we will input it, so.
Does 4 work better, Daniel?
I'll be here at 3:30. I'll get here.
Okay. So 3:30.
All right, then we will recess until 3:30 tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks.